Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Obi, follow me here. Nobody knows, right? Joe Lenardi doesn't know. Jerry Palm doesn't know. I'm looking at some of these bracketologies. JBR bracketology, T3, logo, big underdog, Brad Watchell, made for March. Nobody knows. Because these are all opinions, educated opinions, based on, you know, how years past have gone, based on maybe talking to some people that are in the committee, how they're leaning. But when you get in a group, in a room, and you start ironing things out, things change. People thought A&M was in 21. They weren't in. A lot of people thought A&M was a higher seed than they got last year. They weren't. I guess my point is to start off TexAgs Radio this morning here on Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, as I injure the English language, is that these are just projections, which is exactly what the term bracket projections are. But it doesn't mean anything because I guarantee, no guarantee, I strongly think there are 2, 3, 4, 5 committee members that already have Texas A&M in and several that don't. I don't think anybody knows at this point.
Right. They're all educated guesses. Now, what I wonder is how much weight will the SEC tournament have? Because, quite frankly, it hasn't had much weight regarding A&M the last 2 years. I guess when you look at it, the SEC tournament will end. It seems like it's ended sometime around 3 o'clock, maybe 4 Eastern time, 3 Central, the last couple of years. And then they have the selection show 3 or 4 hours later, right?
Yep.
So a lot of it has to be done before. And there's the contingency plans.
But that isn't done today.
No, not today.
I think people have the ideas like, all right, if this plays out the way I think it will, this team is in. Like, I think that is probably happening.
Well, I just don't think it's viable that you think that, okay, these guys get together on Sunday and in that 4 hour stretch,
knock it all out.
They knock it out and decide all the seedings and all. Yeah, that's not realistic to me. So they've already, they're already penciling, okay, who's the teams that have already won automatic bids.
They probably have.
Here's some teams that are in no matter what.
Yeah. I bet you they have branches too, different timelines or branch timelines. That if A&M wins, this happens. If they win against Ole Miss, they start trending in this direction. If they lose, they start trending in this direction. If they win 2 more, they're absolutely moving to this area. That kind of stuff. All these different scenarios are out there. But I guess the point of me starting off the show like that is, people are like, if you win 2 more, you're in. If you lose to Ole Miss, you're out. We don't know.
Right. I suspect if they lose to Ole Miss, they're out.
They're probably out.
They might be out anyway. They might be. I would think that if they are, then you got to start asking the question, well, what's the net for?
Right.
Because if you can't, I think they're like 11-9 in I'm talking about A&M. In quad 1 and quad 2 games. So if that doesn't impress you, what does?
11-9. I'm looking at it right now. Luke and the gang made a bubble team comparison. You want me to read it to you?
Yeah.
All right. Mississippi State in quad 1s 4-8. Villanova 4-10. A&M 5-6.
And see, I don't know what metric you could come up with that would put Mississippi State ahead of A&M. And yet there are those that say Mississippi State's in. Why? Because they won maybe a couple of
games that don't
easy
matter.
Games.
Yep. Well, and that's what held A&M out 2 years ago.
But A&M has more quad one wins. A&M has finished higher in the SEC race, and A&M beat them.
Yep.
What else do you need?
Quad 2 wins. Mississippi State 2-3, Villanova 5-1, A&M 6-3.
See?
So far I see A&M ahead. Quad 3 wins. Mississippi State's really good at beating the mediocre teams. 7-0, Villanova 3-3, A&M with a couple stinkers, more than a couple, 2-4. Quad 4, the only team with a loss to a Quad 4 team is Mississippi State. Interesting.
Again, if the argument came down, if there was one last team to get in, and it was between A&M and Mississippi State, I think objectively you can't deny that it should be A&M. I mean, what? Because the only thing is they're better in Quad 3 games.
And they have one more win than A&M does on the year.
Again, you didn't play the
teams.
Supposedly a stronger schedule is supposed to benefit you.
That's why I think we probably have a little bit of BAS when it comes to, why they might not be in. Look, I still think they have work to do. I'm not saying that they're in right now. But there might be somebody, and I say might because I don't know who's on the committee, that looks at it and like, you know what? They did beat Tennessee by a lot. They did beat Kentucky. Yeah, they had a couple stinkers, but it looks like they fixed that at the end of the season. They're in. They're one of the best 40 teams in the country. Put them in. I know there are people who think that. There has to be. You can't have that resume and not think that and not have those quality of wins. Now, there are going to be people out there like, but you lost to Vandy? Who else just lost to Vandy? Florida.
And you lost there, and Vandy is, for whatever reason, is a much better team at home. I don't know why. You lost at Arkansas, which is usually where they're pretty good at home. But you lost to them here too. Quite frankly, give me one win in that LSU game that you didn't show up in the second half at home, or Arkansas here, or Vanderbilt, or hey, you had a chance to beat South Carolina. If you would have won that one, this would be a moot point.
Yep.
I tend to think that if they beat Ole Miss again, that they'll be in. Though I wouldn't bet on it, and I feel I would bet on it if they beat Ole Miss and Kentucky.
If they beat Ole Miss and Kentucky and finish the season on a 5-game win streak, with that resume, they're in.
I would think.
Yeah, but we don't know. I guess this goes back to we don't know.
Look, I was in Tampa that night, and I was absolutely sure that A&M was going to be in the tournament, and everybody involved with A&M. I remember Ross Bjork said, "I'm not worried about we're in." And then obviously Buzz thought they were, because when they didn't get in, he just turned around and walked out the door.
Right.
And then last year, you get to the SEC final again after finishing 15-3 and having the season they had, and I'm thinking, okay, are they going to be a 3 or a 4 seed? And then 7 comes up. Mm-hmm. So I've said it before. I go back to football in 2020. I go back to baseball when Eric Hyman, your athletic director, didn't even help you, didn't even try. A&M never gets a break from a committee.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm skeptical.
Calvin, who's a big basketball fan on the board, says on the TexAgs.com, Nuño, if the Aggies don't win versus Ole Miss on Thursday, they don't make the tourney. If they beat Ole Miss and MSU loses, they should be in Mississippi State.
Okay.
Look, there's other scenarios that have to play out too. Who gets these at-larges? Like who wins these conference tournaments? Like that has a lot to do with how many spots are going to be available.
Yeah. And there's already been one that's I don't even know what conference they're in. Indiana State lost their championship game, so whoever beat them is in.
Right.
And now they say, well, maybe Indiana State's good enough to get in, even though I think those that really look at, they say, well,
why?
Yeah, why?
Yeah. This is Coffee Talk presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of the mornings by going to texags.com/coffee. We are TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. You know what? I probably should have started with this, but I wanted to at least get my bracket thoughts out there. Wade Taylor, Anderson Garcia getting all league mentions in the 2024 SEC Men's Basketball Awards. Wade Taylor, first team. Anderson Garcia, all defense. Props to both of those young men.
Yeah, I'm glad they're both recognized. I think you could have made a strong argument for Anderson Garcia to be more than all defensive team.
Yep.
I mean, is it all about scoring points? Because if you see a guy that's leading your team in the league in rebounds, gets a lot of offensive rebounds, the way he impacts the game. But, he got recognized. Quite frankly, he probably doesn't care.
No, he wants to get into that tournament, keep it going. And at the interview we had with Buzz, he was talking about how Anderson is a studier of the game and trying to figure out what the opponents do out there. So props to both of them. Obviously, tonight is the final baseball tune-up before SEC play. They'll still have, obviously, midweek games. But Sam Houston, really good team.
I think Sam Houston's a perfect team to have as your final opponent before conference play. Somebody's going to push you a little bit. And could actually win the game, especially a midweek game. I think probably midweek game against A&M probably means more to them than it does to A&M. But I think that's a great opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to be a part of the conversation, call us up, 979-693-1150. You can text us at that number as well. How do you feel about committees? I want to hear from you. Do you like committees? Do you hate them? Does it depend on what happens this weekend? We can talk about that and much, much more. Let's go around the room and say hello to the people. We go behind the glass, and I believe Nick Savage is working the board today. Nick, good morning, sir.
I like how it's always a mystery these days with everyone that I've been training. But, yes, it is me. Everyone's on spring break, so running the show solo. But, yeah, I tend to be in the, you win 2 games in the SEC tournament and you're in group. I think if they beat Ole Miss, you get Kentucky. And if you beat them, I think for sure they would be in. I guess last week I was in the SEC tournament doesn't matter. The past 2 years have shown that group. But then I talked to Billy about it for a little bit, and he kind of talked me off that ledge. So I think they win 2 games and they're in for sure. At least that's how I feel about it.
If they win 2 games, they should be in. If they beat Ole Miss, they should be in.
I'm no bracketologist like Luke Evangelist, though.
No, but to me, it's and Luke's going to give us an update on what the latest updates are. An update on the latest updates. That's a good way of phrasing it. But to me, like, if you're comparing resumes, some of these teams that are in bubbles, A&M's better.
Well, in the past, of course, look, I get it. Tournament personnel, they change, or selection personnel changes. But in the past, committees have said, well, you put more focus on who you beat than who you lost to, because it means more who you actually beat. But usually when they're saying that, it's to prop up a team that they traditionally like that's not having, that's not having the greatest year. But they beat so-and-so. And, I just have to be realistic about it. A&M just historically doesn't get that same kind of grace.
Yeah. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Let's get the latest bracketology updates. Joe Lenardi and maybe Jerry Palm, whomever you got there, Luke Evangelist.
Yeah, I've got a lot. As you said, nobody truly knows, but these guys definitely do more research than any of us on the topic. Before I get to specific accounts on Twitter who are promoting their bracketologies and doing a lot of research on it, there's this concept of bid stealing, and that's when a team who is supposed to win their conference tournament and would probably get in as an at-large doesn't win. Thankfully, A&M was able to avoid that scenario. Last night, there were a couple potential bid thieves. James Madison won the Sun Belt Championship, so they will be in the tournament. If they had lost that, they would have had a pretty good claim as an at-large.
Yep.
And A&M needs every single spot that they can. Indiana State and Drake in the Missouri Valley. Drake was behind A&M on the bubble. They end up winning the conference and stealing that bid. So Indiana State is now slotted ahead of A&M. So A&M cannot avoid to have that to happen to any other teams. Then in the West Coast Conference, that's where Gonzaga and St. Mary's play. There's really no one else in that conference that can challenge them. They both had pretty close semifinal games. Thankfully, both Gonzaga and St. Mary's pulled it out, so they will be playing each other in the championship. So no bid thief out of the West Coast Conference. So as of right now, A&M looks to be in a pretty decent position. JBR Bracketology did a pretty in-depth study of the 6 most similar resumes since 2019, accounting for net, resume average, predictive average, quad 1A wins, quad 1, and quad 2 win percentage. And out of those 6 similar resumes, 5 of those teams made it in the tournament, and only one missed. That was Iowa in 2023, who was an 8 seed. Baylor in 2019 was a 9 seed. Iowa 2019 was a 10 seed. Rutgers in 2021 was a 10 seed. And USC last year was a 10 seed. So you can certainly argue that A&M, not only should they be in, but they shouldn't even be on the bubble, given that the 6 most similar resumes, 5 of them were not just in the tournament, but they were 8 or 10 seeds.
You know where Indiana State is in the net?
Where? 77.
They're 29th.
Oh, okay.
You know what their record is in quad 1 games?
What's that?
1-4.
Huh. It's not good.
So A&M has won as many quad 1 games as Indiana State has played.
Mm-hmm.
Their quad 2 record is 4-1. So in quad 1 and quad 2 games, they're 5-5. A&M's 11-9.
This would take forever. But I wish the committee would be like, all right, every program send an advocate to discuss why their team should be in. And then you present your reasoning for it and actually, make that part of the committee process.
They're just supposed to know that, I just said.
But I don't know if they know.
So, you'd like to think they do. So if, once again, it goes back to how much weight does this net really have? Because, look, I get the A&M losses, their quad 3 losses are damning, right?
Yep.
But does Indiana State's 10-0 record in quad 3 wins, is that really more impressive? Or does that really trump being 1-4 in quad 1 games while A&M, right?
Right.
And it's not just Indiana State, but that's, what we're talking about. They lost a chance to get in an automatic bid. So, hey, they're thinking at large. Well, if this net rankings, why are you doing them if they don't have
What's the point? Yeah. Look what else.
Well, you were mentioning Manny Obaski. You kind of stole all my information that I was going to talk about our guys getting all SEC honors, but I wanted to do a deeper dive into Manny being named SEC Co-Player of the Week for the first time in his career. He averaged 21 points this week in wins over Mississippi State and Ole Miss. His rise has certainly contributed heavily to the success of A&M recently. In his last 4 games, he's averaging 23 minutes played, 16.3 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, and 2 assists per game. He's scored 65 points in the last 4 games after only scoring 101 in the first 26. He's made 7 threes in the last 3 games after only making 9 in the first 27. His plus-minus in the last 4 games, plus 43. His plus-minus in the first 26 games of the season, minus 42.
Excellent stuff there. Really deep dive into his numbers. All right, let's do this. Let's hit a break. When we come back, let's do the performance of the week, OB. I'm sure you'll get a name or two to pop out there.
Yeah, we might have just talked about one.
We might have just done it. Yeah, we'll do that when we come back here. Let's hit a break and talk Heritage Films at the moment. That is a documentary company for normal people, regular Joes, your neighbor, you, your dad, your uncle, whomever it may be. They do these awesome documentaries that are about 2 hours long, hour and 47 for our family documentaries. Fantastic. And Chance, who owns the company, the founder of it, he went to my dad's house, interviewed him, talked to him about his life in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. That's right. My dad's 94, or about to be 94, I should say. And he's kicking, man. And we got to tell his story. How he escaped communism, how he came to this country, found a Cuban wife here in the United States and my mom, and just made an awesome family. Awesome documentary that we got to watch with the twins, with my 2 daughters, the 4 kids. It was great. My brother and his family. Phenomenal experience. Highly recommend you do it because it is a bonding experience. And then that story will be held for a long time, right? You'll be able, the next generation, be able to hold on to that story, and you continue to keep the family name out there. That is one option, doing a documentary film. You can also do a little shorter version, which is called the Year Flicks, 20-minute Q&A videos for the youngers in the family, 6th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, freshman year of college, Aggie ring. Tell all these stories, right? Q&A fun questions like what you're into, who you hang out with, favorite subject, a lot of different things you can get into, and he does it a lot of fun. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. yourheritagefilm.com. That phone number for Heritage Film, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance, Studio Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looks so good with Maroon U. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan here on this Tuesday morning. OB, let's do the performance of the week. I think you already Let the people know who yours is.
Well, it'd have to be old Mo Manny Obaseki. I mean, he, like Luke was just telling us, he's just emerged over the last 4 games, but the last 2 especially. He's been the difference.
Yeah. So, Luke, do you remember when I started talking about Manny before he started playing? I don't know, like a month ago, I started saying, am I back?
Yeah, you manifested it.
Well, I don't know if I did, but
he manifested it.
But
it's been a Manny feast.
And I think I brought it up initially with Justin Lanham, who's going to be on the show later. But the reason I wanted to have Manny get the ball more, because I was like, he's the one guy on this team that can handle the ball. I don't like when he handles the ball too much. Let me go ahead and be honest about that. Can attack the rim. He's a little erratic, but he brings an athleticism offensively that isn't so predictable as what we've seen A&M do. And I think somewhat we've seen that in play, because when he does have the ball, now people are thinking about him. And when they weren't thinking about him, he went straight to the hole.
Yeah, he gets points in the paint. Yeah. And sometimes it looks like there's no way he's going to score. He's strong. He can get off a shot, and you think it's not going to go. And sometimes he muscles his way in there, and sometimes he just contorts his body. There's a reason he was a 5-star. I think he was a 5-star guy. And now he's playing like it.
So I look at those numbers and it worries me. I'm going to be real honest. I am one of these guys, like, if that's not what I think your game is, you better stop while you're ahead. He is 6 of 9 from the 3-point line. That is not a sustainable number for most 3-point shooters, much less a guy that I don't think that's his game. But, buddy, you're on fire. Keep it going.
Yeah, I think what he's also doing is he's taking a lot of the emphasis off of Wade Taylor. Okay. And I think that's, Wade was in a slump for quite a while. Well, the last 2 games, Wade's actually shot the ball much better. Oh, gosh, what a coincidence.
Yep.
So,
and again, Manny and Boots on the floor at the same time are 2 physical guys going to the rim, and that will open things up.
Yeah, and Manny's a real athletic guy, and he just all year A&M's been looking for that consistent third scoring option, and they've had it consistently in the last 4 games. And what are they, 3-1 in that?
Yeah,
and almost beat South Carolina, the number 18 team. So, it's made a huge difference, and it kind of reminds me. Not saying it's the same, but it kind of reminds me. I think you've touched on it too, of what we saw 2 years ago with Quinn Jackson.
Well, I paid props to Buzz yesterday because we live in a message board culture where, like, you pick on the one thing that isn't working. And by the way, there were reasons to pick on the staff this year. But you have to give Buzz credit for not just saying, all right, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is what we do, and eventually, no, he tinkers with it, and we've seen it happen now,
3 years in a row.
3 years in a row.
Yeah. The frustrating part is that it gets to this point.
Sure.
Where, again, you're at this time of year, and because you had the issues that you had to work out, you're on the bubble.
You're on the bubble. Let me go with that bubble. All right, let's do my next one. Are you familiar with the gentleman by the name of Ryan Prager, who
he
gets K's?
He's a large Jewish young man.
I didn't know that part of him, but I knew he was large.
I've learned that from Richard Zane.
7 innings pitched there against Rhode Island, and 1 hit allowed. 13
strikeouts.
13 strikeouts. That's ace type stuff, buddy.
Yeah, that's like me trying to get a prom date back in the day. I've struck out at least
struck
13
times. Yeah. You? No. You? No. You? No. Anybody? No. Sorry. I just played out that whole scenario in my head. I felt like I was there in 1947 when you were going through it. Just kidding, OB. I'm in the old guy community. I can do it with you.
No, I don't mind.
Hey,
seems like it was that long ago.
Look, hasn't given up a run this year.
That's crazy.
He's just been great. Look, it's about to get real when they go to Florida. I get that, but I'm going to enjoy it for what it is. He has been an ace.
He's been amazing, and I hope it's just the beginning of greater things to come.
Luke Evangelist, give us the last one.
Yeah, so Aggie softball. We were talking about Aggie baseball pitching, but we got to give it to Aggie softball as well. Aggie starting pitcher Brooke Vestal tossed 6 hitless innings before Emily Kennedy helped shut the door to complete the sweep of number 22 South Carolina 2-1 on the weekend. They only allowed 2 runs. Aggie softball is only using 4 pitchers, which is absolutely incredible. They rotate the same 4 in and out, and they've shut their opponents down on their way to a 23-2 record this season.
I hear a joke coming.
No, it's not a joke. It's just I'm going to enlighten Luke. It's not unusual for softball teams not to use many pitchers. I covered one that pitched the same person for like every game. Yeah. Every game.
When was Cat? When was that?
Oh, gosh.
Early 2000s?
Yeah, because there's one, I was just met Irma, so around 2002.
Cat, is it Osterman? Is that what?
Yeah.
Do you know that name, Luke?
No.
Yeah, this lady was a phenom.
Then Jenny Finch, when she was at Arizona, pitched every game.
That's right, yeah. Just a phenom. But hey, by the way, have the new rankings come out for softball?
Yeah, I believe they're 13th now.
Okay, I think they were 17th last week.
Climbing.
Yeah.
And I feel South Carolina was ahead of them.
No, South Carolina was 22.
Okay.
Hey, you swept a ranked team.
Yeah.
Fried that chicken.
A couple of weeks ago, South Carolina was definitely ahead of A&M.
yeah.
So great stuff there. So, all right, that's going to be our performance of the week. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, we didn't get to talk to Charean last week. Let's talk to Charean.
Yeah.
Let's see. Justin Matabike, Mike Evans. Who else should we talk about? I'm sure you're very excited about what's happening in the NFC East. Saquon Barkley said, I'm leaving New York for Philadelphia. Boo. All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back with that. Troubadour Festival time, Texas Barbecue and Music Experience. They returned to Aggie Park. It was there last year. It was amazing. On Saturday, May the 18th, and this year's event is even bigger and better. Troubadour Festival is bringing together 35 of the best barbecue joints in Texas for you to indulge in unlimited samples of their incredible smoke creations, and you cannot forget about the music. There's live unlimited samples.
So the eating goes with the ticket?
Well, there's different types of tickets, but you can get the ticket that involves everything.
Well, that's what I'm going to get.
Yeah. I mean, because I've heard about your routine at Costco. You could go back, you change, you put a hat on so you can get more samples. They encourage that here at the Troubadour Festival.
I'm in.
You're all in.
I'm in.
And I bet you're in with these guys. Travis Tritt.
Yeah.
Yeah, headliner.
Here's a quarter. Call someone who cares.
Pat Green.
One of my favorites.
William Clark Green.
Not as familiar. Pat's cousin.
The Red Clay Strays.
It's a very colorful event.
Cameron Saki Band.
Not familiar.
Yeah, but you're going to be.
I'm going to.
As you're eating
it's an
brisket.
Opportunity to go find out and hear some new acts.
Whether you want to experience the barbecue or the concert or just the concert itself.
Or both.
There's a ticket for you, OB.
I'm gonna get 2 of them.
Are you?
Yeah.
Why don't you get 4?
Well, who am I going to take?
I don't know. Elizabeth and me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Thanks for thinking of us. TroubadourFestival.com.
I think you can afford your own.
Oh, sorry. I'll use a media pass. TroubadourFestival.com. Get your tickets now. We'll see you at Aggie Park on Saturday, May the 18th. Obi, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know this was Pat Green when it started.
Yeah,
I like
Green.
it.
I do too. He was trying to go a little bit more Nashville, away from his Texas country roots.
It's good though.
It was good,
pretty good.
But his he had a I'm trying to remember what that album was that Irma bought me when we were dating. I think it was called like 3 days. I can't remember. It had it was a tremendous album.
I'm embarrassed to say that I did not know a lot of his music before, even though I know he's a legend in this part, but I wasn't big into Pat Green.
Yeah.
But he's great. TexAgs Radio presented by
And
David
he'll be
Gardner.
at the Troubadour Fest.
He'll be at the Troubadour Festival. We are in the Rollo Insurance Studio. By the way, I'm going to bring in Charean here in a second, but have you watched any of the Curb Your Enthusiasms this year?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. I got to catch up. That's my show. All right, let's go straight to the hotline. Charean Williams, Pro Football Talk, joining us here
Who
this
never
morning.
curbs her enthusiasm.
Never. Charean, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. How are we doing today?
We're doing good. So look, I'm not going to air out our conversations on text, but I know that you and I shared a frustration with the basketball team a couple weeks ago. Are you back in? Are you still thinking, all right, here we go?
Yeah, I think they seem, and I'm, guarded saying this because last time we talked about them was after the Tennessee game, and they're so exciting. I'm ready. Let's go. They're playing good at the right time, and then there was a 5-game losing streak, and so I'm guarded, but guarded enthusiasm for how they played the last couple games. To me, these last 2 games are the best they've played. Just really good basketball. I think they found something. They found a good combination, and I'll give them this. They had a chance during that losing streak to quit and say it was over and the NCAA bid was not going to happen and all that sort of stuff. And they found a way to turn it around, and that says a lot, I think, about the coaching staff. It says a lot about this team that they did have the heart to keep playing. I think a lot of teams would have quit after that.
Yeah, but this is what we've come to expect from A&M, a late season charge.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
Charean, let's talk a little NFL stuff. Justin Madubuike gets his deal, and it was certainly well deserved. How did that all come together?
Yeah, we had a lot of deals with Aggies get done over the last few days. Justin finally got his payday. It makes him the I guess third now because Chris Jones actually did his deal after Justin did, but Justin will be the third highest paid defensive tackle in football. Well deserved. He earned that last year with his double-digit sacks and what he did. I mean, when you get double-digit sacks at the defensive tackle position, it's pretty incredible, and it's a great season. And I had him first ballot All-Pro, and he made second team All-Pro, but a great accomplishment for him, and I think his future is bright, and obviously the Ravens do too, or they wouldn't have signed him to that deal. And then I guess we're just going to keep talking about the others. Mike Evans got his deal with the Buccaneers. I was a little surprised by that, but he said it came down to his wife telling him, why do we want to leave? Even for more money, why do we want to leave? So he's got a 2-year deal with the Buccaneers, and I think that's the right move for him, even though, he could have gone probably to Kansas City or somewhere else and played with the All-Pro level quarterback, but he likes playing with Baker, and he did have over 1,000 yards this season, and feels like he can accomplish what he wants to accomplish. Now, that team's not going to win the Super Bowl, but he's not going to have a chance to do that over the next 2 years. But then, late in your career, you have a chance to go and do that somewhere else. You sign a series of 1-year deals and go find a Kansas City or whoever that might be, whatever quarterback you want to play with. Maybe he wants to go home and play with C.J. Stroud. That's where I really thought he would end up. So, but he's staying in Tampa, good for him. And then Jermaine Illuminor signed with the Giants, leaving the Raiders for the Giants. He got a nice payday after really playing well at right tackle. I think he found his position. His first few years in the league, he didn't start. And then he's really come on, especially since he joined the Raiders, and has become a really solid right tackle. And he got paid for it. So, 3, we still got some out there. Obviously, Josh Reynolds is out there. Tyrell Dodson's out there. I would expect him probably to go back to the Bills. And we might have a couple more, but that's the 2 off the top of my head. Brian Tannehill. be interesting to see where he ends up. Is he going to get a chance to start somewhere, or is he going to go in as a quality backup at some place? At this point, there are not a lot of teams that need starting quarterbacks. I mean, those that do are probably going to get it in the draft. They might have to wait until after the draft to see who comes out without a quarterback.
What's going on at the running back position in the NFC East, and Dallas in particular, and Barkley to the Eagles, and how crazy is that?
Yeah, it is interesting with what they've done. And the Cowboys don't have one right now, but that's a position that has just been devalued. And I think receiver has been. You look at the receiver market in free agency yesterday. Hardly any receiver. Gabe Davis might be the only receiver who signed yesterday, but very few receivers or agreed to terms. Very few receivers have gone, and that's become, both of those positions have become positioned where they think they can just go to the college ranks in the draft, 4th, 5th, 6th round, and find receivers and find running backs. And it's happened. You look at, for instance, Puka Nacua at receiver last year and what he did, and we can name a ton of running backs who've done the same thing, come in and really played well, who weren't first-round draft picks. So, I just think teams think they can go get those players in the draft for a lot less money, and I think that's what the Cowboys are going to do. Now, it puts pressure on them. Teams always say, well, we draft best player available. We always draft best player, but at some point, it's not drafting best player available. It's we got to have a running back because we don't have a starter on our roster, and that's what where the Cowboys are right now. So if they don't get a veteran now, is Derrick Henry still out there? Do I expect him to go to the Cowboys? Absolutely not. But I think they do end up with some veteran running back they're going to have to pay less money to in that second round of free agency that will start next week. And then I think they draft a guy to be their starter. But they are rolling the dice big time in that position. It's not like it used to be, but you still got to have a good running back to win in this league. You got to have a guy who can pick up the blitz. You got to have a guy who can catch passes out of the backfield, who can be freedom. I don't know that they're going to find that, honestly. But we'll see. We'll see what they do.
Charean, I remember at the end of Tiki Barber's career, or when he left, people weren't very fond of him. He's back in the news because of his thoughts on Saquon leaving and Saquon clapping back at him. Well, why is it this generation of football players don't like Tiki?
I don't know. It's interesting. And I thought Saquon went a little over the top.
Yeah, I agree.
Basically all Tiki said is, you're dead to me, basically, because he's leaving and going to the Giants' rival. I mean, I get it. If you're a Giants guy, you're not going to be happy with him signing with the Eagles. I mean, you're just not. So, but yeah, they seem to take it out on Tiki as well. So he seems to rub them the wrong way. Sometimes these guys get these platforms after football and they speak their mind, and current players don't like what they say, call them old guys and all that, old heads and all that sort of thing. So, but that was one I thought was a little bit over the top for Saquon for what was said.
Yeah, people say, they're dead to me, and it's a joke, and most rational people accept it as a joke.
But it's got to go deeper than that. It's got to be something between those two that he's heard over the years on sports radio.
Be. Yeah, it absolutely could be. There's no question that could be the way it is. So, yeah.
So are the Eagles just putting Are the Eagles putting everything on, winning the Super Bowl like this year? I mean, the Cowboys are losing a running back because they want to. I guess they're trying to save salary. The Eagles must be. Yeah. Did Kelsey leaving give them that much money to spend on a running back?
Well, that's a good question. It is an interesting philosophy because that's not the way most teams are going. Obviously, like we just talked about, you can find running backs. So they think that if you're going to pay that much money to a running back, you better be certain that he's the guy that you think can put you over the top. And I think that's their thinking on it, that they're close enough since they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago that if they can get that, be like the 49ers offense, I think that's what they're trying to duplicate is the 49ers offense with all those weapons and say you're not going to be able to stop us. If we have Saquon, if we have A.J. Brown, if we have Dallas Goedert, if we have, keep going down the list. So I think that's their philosophy of let's just get a ton of weapons and put them out there and they can't stop us. But they've lost a lot on defense. I don't know how they're going to be on defense because they've lost a lot of players on defense.
I hope they suck.
Hey, Charean, with NIL and with NFL free agency and all these different – remember the good old days where more than likely a player on your team wouldn't go to their rival? Like, I mean, it would happen, but like I feel like it's way more common and way more acceptable in that world than it was before.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I grew up in, Roger Staubach. And,
Remember when Calvin Hill went to the Redskins?
Yeah, yeah, that was something. I mean, he was dead. He was dead to me when he went to Washington.
Calvin's going to call you.
So but most players at that time, they started and finished a career. It was a big deal when Emmitt Smith went to the Cardinals. Even, in the '90s, the free agency had started in 1994, but when he went to the Cardinals, that was, oh, man, no. You wanted him to start and finish his career with the Cowboys, and that didn't happen. So, yeah, and now it's just kind of accepted. Walter Nolan goes to Ole Miss, and, you have players. We have the pitcher now who came from Texas. Like, it's who's going to bid the most money and how's it going to get done, and we don't really feel those rivalries all that much. And that's the thing. I wrote this before when we were hiring a football. Like, I want I want players who love the university as much as I do. That's what I want. It's great they get the money. I'm glad players are paid now, but I don't want it to be all about the money. I want it to be the love of the school, to want to be an Aggie, to all the things that are important to me, the ring, the core values, all those things. That's the players I want to be at A&M. And if they're not 5 stars, so be it. But let's play for the love of the game. And, you see that with a lot of the players we have here now, most of our teams, I think. And it really does make a difference when the school and the team mean something to you and it's not just about the money.
Charean, great work. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Charean Williams, Pro Football Talk, the Hall of Famer here on TexAgs Radio. Let's hit a break. We'll come back with one final segment here on the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations.
in majors.
TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. So Luke was doing some research, and right now, according to the Lenardi, what was your nickname that Kay Nagley gave you?
Luke Nardi.
Luke Nardi has a recent projection.
Yes, Joe Lenardi, the actual Lenardi in this room with us, not me. He just released an updated bracketology, and of course, the last 4 buys look the exact same. It's still Michigan State, Seton Hall, TCU, and Mississippi State. I have no idea why they love Michigan State and Mississippi State so much, but I'm not here to question that.
There you are.
The last 4 in is pretty confusing to me as well. Colorado, Virginia, St. John's, and Indiana State. I think Virginia and Indiana State should be there. Colorado and St. John's, if you stack up the resumes, A&M has a much better one. A&M is now officially the first team out of the tournament, according to Joe Lenardi. They are joined on the first 4 out with New Mexico, Wake Forest, and Villanova. And then the next 4 out is Pittsburgh, Iowa, Providence, and Memphis.
Michigan State's record is 13-8. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was very low.
I had it here now. 18-13.
18-13. What's A&M's record?
18-13.
18-13.
Interesting, huh?
They're 3-8. That's where I messed that up in quad 1 games.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Huh.
But they're
and which is considered the
5-5 in quad 2 games.
Which is considered the superior conference this season?
I believe most people say it's the SEC.
They say the Big 12, then the SEC.
So why would Michigan State? Because they haven't lost any quad 3 game.
But also their net is really high, even though A&M is significantly better than them in quad 1 and 2. Yeah.
Right. So again, what's the net telling you?
Right. That's what I don't understand is why is their net 22 spots better than A&M when A&M is significantly better against better competition?
Because Michigan State has a history.
They were also preseason top 5, I believe. So
they're all
take that away, and maybe they're not in the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, think about that. What was A&M ranked when the season started?
15th.
What was Michigan State?
I think 4 or 5.
Okay. So, look, did they suffer a bad losing streak, like a really bad losing streak? Do you know?
I can do more research, but...
look, at the end of the day, that's why I would love an advocate. You know, the AD, you know, you get 5 minutes, sir. Here's your presentation on the weekend before conference tournaments. I don't know, the Monday before. Bam. You get 5 minutes to make your pitch. Tell us the why, and you make your presentation.
Michigan State has lost 4 of their last 5.
Interesting how their arrow's pointing down and A&M's is pointing up, yet they're very interesting.
They've lost to Northwest. I mean, they beat Northwestern by 4, just lost to Indiana.
So what you're saying is they're not better than A&M.
Indiana, which is also 18-13.
Look, I hate that we're in this position because of the losing streak, right? They did this to themselves. But if we're not going to advocate for the positives, who is? And that's what we're helping do, and get that out there, get that message out there so it becomes a thing.
Now, again, if those quad 1 wins are supposed to, and quad 2 wins are supposed to mean something, why don't they?
I'm going to start scheduling quad 0s. Just win. Just win the games, you'll be all right.
I pulled my quad the other day.
Yeah, doing what? That little, the lady machine?
Yeah.
That one actually does hurt. I was very proud of you, Obi. You did not stop.
I don't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop, Rockefeller Records.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a big Jay-Z fan. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Justin Lanham. I like when I make OB chuckle. Justin Lanham, our basketball analyst, will break it all down next on TexAgs. Welcome back into TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Look, it's real easy to say the big difference with Aggie basketball is, the Manny Obaseki part of it. And it is a huge difference offensively and even some defensively. But there's something different, right? They've gotten back to what they like to do. So let's talk to an analyst to break it all down. Justin Lanham joining us here on TexAgs Radio. Justin, good morning, buddy.
Morning, David. How are you?
Good, man. Good, man. So you heard me kind of preview it. Obviously, the Manny resurgence, if you will, or just emergence, has made a difference. But what is different about Aggie hoops in these last three that we weren't seeing in those five?
Yeah, I think just confidence. I think that goes a long way, just the confidence that they're playing with. And so when you have kind of an emergence of a guy like Manny, and he's doing some things, I think it gives other guys a little bit of confidence, just another guy that they can rely on. So, I think it takes a little bit of pressure off of Wade and Boots to score the rock. And so I think that's just going to elevate their game, because hopefully with them, with Manny kind of doing what he's been doing, hopefully that's going to take a little bit of pressure off them. So most importantly, I just feel like it gives them confidence to continue to build right now. And so I think we talked about this earlier on. Like I want to say like 3, 4, 5 shows ago, we talked about, hey, we're going to need to see somebody step up. And I want to say that we said we needed a guy like Manny, like maybe Manny could be that down the stretch. And that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing Manny kind of step up his game. And hopefully, like I said, that's going to take a little bit of pressure off Boots and Wade.
All right, so one of the things that I was asking for a few weeks ago with you is, get Manny involved in the offensively because of the matchup problems he has. What has he done to really bring back Wade Taylor's game?
Yeah, you're noticing Wade is playing off the ball a little bit more. And so hopefully that's going to free him up a little bit and give him a little bit easier shots. And maybe he can, take some standstill threes instead of him having to create so much, because whenever the ball's in his hand, he's having to create off the dribble, which he's great at. I'm not saying that's not a knock on him. He's really, really good at that. But let's try to get him some easier shots. And so whenever he's playing off the ball and Manny's doing what he's doing, teams are going to have to start to kind of develop a little bit different defensive game plan. And when they help off of Manny and you've got a guy like Wade Taylor that can step into a three and he's not having to create as much and exhaust as much energy, I think that is huge and it goes a long way. And let's if we're going to make a run in the SEC tournament, I think putting Manny into this lineup is going to help as well, because it's going to save legs. Wade's not having to take on as much responsibility handling the ball, and now you've really got 3 guys that can take that can take the ball down and handle the ball, as far as Wade, Boots, and Manny. So I think there's just so many things now that I feel like you can play with offensively that maybe 3-4 weeks ago, when we're kind of in that stretch, where we're on that losing streak, I just don't think that we knew what we had with him. So I think it's really, really been exciting to see him kind of emerge here as of late.
Talking to Justin Lanham here on TexAgs Radio. All right, so the fact that we're getting Boots and Wade, all right, at least in the last game, back in the same game, just talk about that factor, because for this team to have a chance, those 2 guys got to be those 2 guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they both scored 19 last game.
Correct.
And so I think that's huge. Normally that's been 25 and 20 or whatever it's been. But again, I don't mean to harp on the Manny situation, but I think some things are just going to come easier for them. And then, whenever you have Manny doing what he just did, you've got Wade and Boots contributing like they just did. And then you're just trickling in some points here and there from some of these other role players. I think that's going to be really hard to defend. And if we can continue to do, the Buzz recipe and rebound the ball at a high rate. Look, I'll say this. Manny shot the ball really, really well on Saturday. Can he recreate that from game to game? I don't know. I hope so. That would be awesome. Can he continue to shoot that well from beyond the arc? I don't know. But with that being said, if he's taking those shots and our guys are rebounding continuing to rebound the ball well like we've been doing, then I still think you're going to see some success with Manny in the rotation.
Well, I do want to talk about that for a moment because it does – I don't feel like that's a sustainable model. Manny Obaseki hitting, 6 of 8 threes, but I like it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't like it, but I don't feel like that's a sustainable model. So offensively, I guess, does he keep doing it until it doesn't work, but as long as he's attacking the rim?
Yeah, I'm always about feeding the hot hand. As a coach, I was always about that, and until that's not the hot hand anymore. I'm not ever going to, a guy that's hit 2 or 3 threes in a row, I'm never going to sub him out of the game right away or anything like that. So, I think his game is catching in the mid post or taking a guy off the dribble. He's got a great spin game. He can get into the lane and then he spins and he's so long that he extends and he can score right there at the basket. And so I think that that's his game. But whenever he is hitting from outside and he's hot, then I think you got to kind of feed that hand. And so you allow him to probably experiment with that until that's not the case. And then you pull him aside and say, hey, Manny, let's get to the basket a little bit more. Let's try to get downhill. And I think he's a great opportunity for us to post maybe a smaller guard or maybe have a mismatch, maybe get into a pick and roll and feel like you can get a mismatch with Manny. That's what I would try to utilize as much as I could down this stretch.
Talking to Justin Lanham here on TexAgs, we spent some time offensively, but really what has been apparent in these 3 games, and even if you go back to the South Carolina game, they're getting back to the free throw line. They're getting their turnovers. They're forcing turnovers, and they're getting rebounds. Like, really, that is, at the end of the day, the core to their identity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say this, like last 3 games, like looking at the schedule, you hold Georgia to 56, you hold Mississippi State to 69 and Ole Miss to 60. We're sitting here talking about our offense, and obviously we had a great production offensively against Ole Miss, but man, really defensively, those are impressive numbers, holding teams to 60, 56, and 69. I don't know what the average is of that over those last 3 games, but that's pretty impressive. And so if we could continue to do that, which I think we can, we've been doing a good job, I feel like, of keeping guys out of the paint. At times, I know that we've given up some second chance opportunities as well as we rebound the ball offensively. Sometimes we give up some second chance opportunities, defensive rebounding the ball, but I feel like we've kept people out of the paint. If we could continue to do that and just make them have to take tough contested long threes or just tough contested twos, that's what you love as a coach. I used to say I hate the points at the basket or in the paint, but I love a contested 2 or a contested 3. If you can do that, that's the best I feel like you can do holding a team to a shot.
How about Henry? Good to see him getting some minutes again. He was missed for sure. I think they need him to make this stretch, to maybe he didn't have to be the Henry we saw at the beginning of the year, but some kind of contribution, a little bit more depth. Good to see him back out there against Ole Miss.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he played under 10 minutes. And so just to kind of get him back in, hopefully this a little bit extended period of time, you're getting a few more days off than this week, obviously, not having to play on Tuesday or Wednesday. So hopefully a little bit more rest for him, getting him in on the game Saturday, but not playing too many minutes. Hopefully you can get him back in the rotation. Again, I don't know what the extent of, the injury or, what's going on there, but hopefully this little bit of rest is going to help him, and I think it will. But you're 100% right, David. I think that for them to kind of make a run, Henry has to contribute in some way. And so obviously the biggest thing is just if he's healthy, I think he's going to contribute. I like his game, and he's done some really good things, obviously, this year. Like I said, if he's healthy, I think he can contribute.
Justin, look, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I'm a little worried about playing Ole Miss again just because of the success that they had. To me, that's like usually when a team gets kicked in the mouth, they find something different to do the next time you play them. What do you think Ole Miss will do differently?
Yeah, I would love to be a fly on the wall in those practices the following days after Ole Miss kind of got their teeth kicked in, because I would like to hear and see, what the message was from Chris Beard. And I would imagine it would have something to do with rebounding the ball. As well as we rebounded the ball against them and crashed the boards, I would imagine that that's going to be a discussion. So I think you're just going to see a little bit more of a toughness defensively and a toughness rebounding the ball is what I would imagine. I like our matchup against them. I think I liked us being able to get to the basket and just the way, again, with Manny in the lineup, I think it's just a different mentality with us. I thought we played faster, pitched the ball ahead a little bit more and did some things like that. And so I like the matchup, but I do know that Chris Beard is going to have those guys ready. And that was probably not a message that those guys, that those Ole Miss players were ready for at practice the next day. So I'm sure that they're going to be ready to play.
Talking to Justin Lanham here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. All right, so let's kind of go through some scenarios, Justin, and see where we end up, right? So give me a percentage number on if this happens, A&M gets into the tournament or not, all right? If A&M loses to Ole Miss, give me a percentage that they still will find a way to get into the tournament, percentage number, and give me your why.
I'm going to say 0% chance if we lose to Ole Miss. I think just the body of – I think there's still work out there from other teams. I think partly it has to do with us, but I think there's also work out there from other teams where other teams are going to steal bids from us. At that point, I think the committee is going to be looking elsewhere to find somebody else to plug in, and just the perception of having lost on the – I know it's not the first day, but essentially the first game for us in the SEC tournament. I don't like the way that would probably be perceived as well.
All right. They beat Ole Miss. Percentage they get in.
Man, right now, for me, I'm going to go 55%, just above 50, just because I still think the quad one wins, our strength of schedule. Like, to me, it's just going to, for me, it's upsetting if we don't get in, because I feel like we scheduled harder this year. And it's like, are we going to get rewarded for that? And don't get me wrong, I get it. I know the quad 3 losses. I understand, what everybody else is going to say about that. I get it. But at the same time, the strength of schedule that we played this year, I would hope that we would get rewarded for some of those wins. So I'm going to go 55%, somewhat optimistic there, in hopes that we get in.
All right. They get past Ole Miss. They beat Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm going to say 100%. Because I think, as hot as Kentucky is right now and how I think they're kind of like everybody's dark horse right now to possibly contend for a national championship. I'm not saying that everybody thinks they're going to win it necessarily, but they are kind of like lingering there, and people are like, Kentucky could possibly get there. So I think everybody understands that. And I think that would just be another huge win for us. So I'm going to go 100% there if we win 2 games.
So you think 0 chance if they lose to Ole Miss. Like, that'll be the end of it. Even though, and Justin, I agree with you because I think that's what the committee is thinking, but we just spent a whole segment kind of breaking down these other resumes out there. A&M has as good or better resume than Mississippi State. I say better, and they beat them. They've got a better resume than Michigan State. They've got better resume than several teams out there that is being discussed. So if they are on the chopping block, and you look at these teams and their resumes, why not A&M?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point that I made, and I agree with you as far as having a better resume. I will say with that, with us losing, if we did lose to Ole Miss, playing that scenario up, then I think there's also some other scenarios that are out there that it's like, well, what happened in those scenarios? So if a Mississippi State loses to, is it LSU, correct?
Yep.
If they lose to LSU, and then some of these other teams that are kind of right there on the chopping block, like you alluded to, if they lose, then I think we're right back in the same scenario. But then you got to worry about, somebody else, stealing a bid or just things like that, all the different scenarios. But I'm with you. I think as far as the chopping block goes and those teams that are right there with us, I like our resume. I like the Q1 wins that we have and the strength of schedule that we played. I think it just is better. And I think I saw you maybe on Twitter, or maybe I heard you talking about it, but just about, comparing ourselves to Mississippi State. I don't know what Lenardi's thinking there and some of those other guys are thinking, but I like our resume better than I like Mississippi State's.
Justin, I just think we don't know what people are thinking, right? You get a room of guys that go in there, and some people are going to have biases. They're all going to have biases. Some people are going to like the resume better from A&M. When they start comparing resumes, and it's a group of guys, I know that A&M has been screwed before, but fresh set eyes, fresh ideas, and now a little bit different. Like A&M has now been a team that's been knocking on the door in the tournament the last 2 years, right? They are more, I think they're a better known commodity, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and I will say this too, like we saw it from San Diego State last year. Like that was a veteran team. That was a very senior heavy, older team. And you saw what they did in the tournament. I think that you got to look at that too. Like, hey, this is a team that returns a lot of guys. This is a team that has beat a lot of your projected top 4 seeds that are going to be in the tournament. And so I think you've got to look at that. To me, A&M is a fun plug and play team in the NCAA tournament because there's a lot of like, man, what could this team do? This A&M team could get really hot and they could beat some really good teams. And so to me, if I'm on that committee, I like that versus, this team, we're going to put them in, but that's probably going to be an early exit for them. With A&M, yeah, sure. Could we be an early exit? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. It's the NCAA tournament. But there's also a little bit of, man, what if they got hot, And so I like looking at it that way. And maybe I'm putting on my maroon glasses, but I like to look at it that way.
Talking to Justin Lanham here on TexAgs Radio. Justin, it's been fun to watch this team figure it out. They only have themselves to blame if they don't get in. But that being said, when you go into a tournament, what do you think like a coach would go into it like, hey, we've got to win 3 games. We've got to win 1 game. We're just focused on winning Ole Miss. Like, and what kind of bench rotation side, how many people could play because it is a tournament setting? What's that kind of mindset before you know how many games you're going to play?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's probably, coach talk, but, my mentality has always been just you got to win the game that's in front of you. And so the game that's in front of you is Ole Miss, and you'll worry about the rest later. I think everybody already knows, like you're going to know that all those players, the coaching staff, and including Buzz, like everybody has that in the back of their mind. Like, hey, we've got to at least get to Friday. And we know that Kentucky's sitting there waiting. But I think the message that you're preaching to the team and you're letting those guys know is, hey, let's just handle business. Let's take care of what we can take care of right now, and that's Ole Miss. And so I think that's the main thing. And then you asked about rotations. Yeah, you're probably going to try to get a few of those guys in the first half if you can. If you can get Eli Lawrence just 2 minutes in the first half or a minute and a half just to get maybe a guy some rest, and maybe Jace Carter's getting a few more minutes. You're throwing Hayden Hefner out there for a couple extra minutes, just to kind of save your legs. But at this point in time, David, I'll be real honest, like it's a win or go home mentality. So you just got to win the game. And so if that means that Wade Boots and Henry or Wade Boots, Solomon Anderson and Manny play 30 plus minutes in that first game, then that's what it's got to be. I don't think that you can wait to play till tomorrow because you've got to win the game that's in front of you.
Justin, great work, buddy. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, David.
All right, we're going to hit a break, come back with an open segment here on TexAgs Radio. Right now, 12 under 12. I like that dramatic pause. 12 under 12. Did you or someone you know graduate from A&M within the last 12 years? And are you leading by example in business and in service? And if that is the case, well, you need to reach out to the Association of Former Students because they want you to nominate yourself or someone that you know for the 12 under 12 Young Alumni Spotlight. So each year, the association recognizes a dozen Aggies who have graduated within the last 12 years for their business accomplishments, civic or military service, philanthropic efforts, and outstanding representation of A&M's core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service. Previous year honorees have included leaders in business and higher education, architects, petroleum, engineers, nonprofit executives, physicians, veterans, and members of the U.S. Armed Forces. 2024 nominations close really soon, Sunday, March 31st, so be sure to submit a nomination very soon. To learn more about this recognition, submit a nomination. Visit tx.ag/12 under 12 nominations. Again, that is tx.ag/12 under 12 nominations. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's talk a little Aggie softball. Hot, great weekend sweep in South Carolina. Let's go to one of the greats, Tori Vidales, joining us here on TexAgs Radio. Tori, good morning. How are you?
How's it going?
All right.
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Let's get into it, man. This A&M softball team, what a great start. Just your thoughts on what's clicking here with Trisha.
Yeah, it's been a really hot start for them. I think really this year you see the culture shift, right? You see the first year, Trisha Ford comes in, it's kind of getting to know everybody. Hey, how are you doing? This year, you're kind of really getting down to the nitty gritty. You're already instilled that culture that you want the team to play with and that you want the girls to have. And so I think this year you're kind of seeing that come to fruition and really having that like kill or be killed mindset that Ford wants them to have.
Tori, one of the things that strikes me when I get to talk to her, I mean, she is very likable, kind of casual, but then when it's business time, it is business time.
Oh, yeah. She likes to call herself a psycho on game days. I think it's hilarious because it's almost like she's the one competing, right? She gets really locked in. She has her exact routine. She's very anal about, the color shoe she wears or the color shirt that they wear. And I think that goes back to the little details that she pays attention to. And I think that she kind of passes on to the players to pay attention to. And it's good to have, someone with that kind of emotion that you can almost mirror in your competition. So I think they've learned a little bit of that from her, but I think she gives them a voice, right? That's like her number one thing that she wants to be able to give to these players is for them to find their own voice as they come through the program. So I think she's done a really good job at not only like holding them accountable as their coach, but also like loving on them and making sure that they know that they can feel comfortable to kind of become who they are meant to become in college softball.
Tori Vidales, obviously a two-time All-American and an Olympian. You can find her work at the SEC Network. Tori, this weekend they sweep South Carolina. I just want to kind of get into like how difficult that is, especially a ranked South Carolina team. And A&M is still a team that is on the rise, but we don't know them yet. We're starting to know them.
Yeah, the sweep this weekend, very atypical just in the sense of you don't hear much about sweeps in the SEC because it is so competitive, and especially another team that's ranked like South Carolina. I actually was coming into the series thinking like, wow, these two teams are really evenly matched. Of course, they got the big arm in Vaughter, which was an obstacle in itself to overcome. I mean, just an incredible arm in the circle. But I think you saw them really kind of elevate their level of play this weekend and almost a little bit of revenge as well, because don't forget the Aggies got swept on the road in Columbia last year. They lost 4 times to South Carolina. So maybe just a little bit of underlying pressure they felt for themselves to kind of make this their revenge tour.
So every time we do an update on A&M softball, we're talking about a host of names, but one of them is Emily Kennedy. Just how impressive has she been?
Man, she looked so sharp this weekend. I was just locked into watching. I wanted to see what pitch she was going to throw next. The changeup looked incredible. I think if you can be a pitcher like Emily Kennedy and throw 70 plus in somebody's face and then come back and yank that chain the next pitch, it's going to buckle a lot of knees, or it's going to freeze a lot of people up. It definitely was freezing me up, and I was in the broadcast booth, so I was feeling that change of speed there. But I think she's really done a great job this fall at really commanding all of her pitches. Ford took away the curveball from her, which is her favorite pitch this fall, and it really forced her to work on the other pitches that maybe weren't her strength. And now I think you really can see the work that she put in all fall and seeing all of those pitches really start to move. And now when you put it together, she's having an All-American type year. I hope she keeps it up.
Tori, beyond Emily Kennedy, just talk about the pitching depth. Do they have enough there to have sustained success there in the SEC?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was asking myself, especially after this weekend. I think Kennedy threw like probably well over 220 pitches. So that's a lot to be expecting to put on her all week or every single weekend that you play an SEC series. So I think you also got a good outing from Brooke Vestal, which she came in the second game, only threw 4 innings, but didn't give up a hit, and then had a fantastic start on Sunday afternoon. And I think if you can keep all 4 healthy and get quality outings from all 4 of them, I think they definitely have the stuff, and they have the complementary pitches to really mess up a lineup. But I think it's really going to come down to staying healthy and having quality outings. I think if you go out there and you have a a bad outing, it really puts the weight of that on the rest of the pitchers, and it's hard to keep that up for a 3-game series for multiple weekends in a row.
Speaking of somebody who keeps keeping it up, is Trinity Cannon. Every year we talk about her. This year, already 2 walk-offs. What makes her such a dependable hitter and somebody that you know that A&M can count on?
I think you've seen her growth throughout the years, and it's something that's kind of looked over as you get a little bit older, get a little bit more experience. People just kind of expect that to happen. But I think it truly is a lot of hard work and understanding of the game. How are these pitchers attacking me? And also a lot of self-reflection and honest self-reflection and being like, hey, where are the holes in my swing? Where could I get a little bit better? And I think this year you really saw some competition with Trinity Cannon. I mean, you have options in the infield with depth, which is something that they haven't had in the past. So I think really her elevating her game. She's always been good. She's always been locked in. But I think maybe the competition this year, too, has been given her a little bit of a push to kind of keep elevating and keep grinding. But I think at the plate, she's always been a big hitter. It's just really about coming into her own and trusting herself and knowing that she's got the stuff. She's just got to barrel it up.
What other offensive players do you have your eyes on?
Man, Jazz Hill has been a huge add to this program. I mean, she came over from Arizona State, played under Tricia Ford and company at Arizona State. So they've won a Pac-12 championship. They know what it takes to win, and her specifically and Staff Price as well. You haven't seen as much of her on the field, but I think they have brought such a big difference in the culture, in the dugout, in the locker room, right, at workouts. All of these things, they're elevating this entire team to a new level. And the company of that with Jazz Hill's performance at the plate and on defense, that strong arm in center field. She has just been a complete piece that I think Ford has been able to add to this lineup that has just made them even more lethal than they were last year.
So what other teams do you think A&M's got to worry about? Because I see what LSU's been able to do this year. They got them coming up. Obviously, Florida, Bama. There's a lot of great teams in the SEC. I guess we'll just start it off with LSU and the kind of start that they've had.
Yeah, wow. LSU has been just dominating the competition and impressive even to come in and go undefeated against a really talented Kentucky team. But I think for them, it just comes back to experience. They've got Taylor Pleasance at shortstop, of course, the leader of the infield. But what really sticks out to me is their pitching staff. They have a lot of arms, and all of them have seen innings and will continue to see innings. And a lot of that on the back of Sydney Berzon, the sophomore this year. She was an All-American last year. She has got some dirty movement on her pitches and still so young. Beth Torina, one of the great pitching minds in the game. LSU is no stranger of All-American pitchers. So it's going to be fun to follow that and see the matchup eventually when LSU and A&M meet up. But, man, what a start for LSU. They're hot. I'm interested to see how long they'll go undefeated.
Tori, amazing stuff. Thank you so much. Let's do it soon, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Gig 'em.
Gig 'em. Tori Vidales there, SEC Network, Olympian. Awesome. How about that? She's just great here on TexAgs Radio. Let's hit a break here. When we come back, we'll do an open segment. I thought I got it flipped around. And then Joni Taylor, another great thing to talk about. We'll talk to Joni here at the end of the hour. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet. You can find them on Highway 21 in Caldwell and online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. When you're looking for a new vehicle, what's important to you? Let's go through some of the question marks out there. Pricing, customer service, trade-in value, ease. Like, there's a lot of different things. Salesman, do you like them? Like, that plays a part. Let's go ahead and be honest with you. Like, if they feel like a sleazy salesman, you're not going to buy a car from them. If you feel comfortable with them, you're going to buy a car from them if it's the right time for you and the right price and and just the right situation, right? And that's what I got from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. And many of you who have gone out there have seen the exact same thing. They have great deals, great trade-in value, and again, the best customer service around here in the Brazos Valley. Remember, it's only a 15-minute drive around to Caldwell, short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. You can find them on Highway 21 in Caldwell and online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody listening in this morning. It's been a fun show. A little softball chat. We'll get to some basketball, women's basketball in a moment. We've done men's basketball. We've done a little bit of baseball. We probably need to go a little bit deeper into that here momentarily. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Luke Evangelist got text messages and some notes for us.
Yep, I've got a text message from Dave in Edmond. Says, I hate committees. PTSD from 2020 football and basketball the last couple of years. Committee members are likely asking themselves, which A&M will we get if we put them in, Vandy or the first Tennessee? It's a valid question.
It is a valid question that we're having ourselves, right? Like, look, the reason we are having this discussion is because A&M lost games that they shouldn't have lost, right? At the most inopportune time. Now they're winning again. Mississippi State's losing again. There's no guarantee Mississippi State gets in. I understand all the arguments for them and against them, and this is where we are right now. But I'm sorry, like I feel like they owe us. And I'm not asking for like charity, Luke, but like I feel like, and not that they're even thinking that, but because a committee did something in 2022 and a football committee did this, while I agree with you, they haven't been kind to A&M. New year, new group, let's freaking go.
And I would also say that A&M, all the reasons that were working against them in the past, the non-conference strength of schedule and not having a signature win in non-conference and the 8-game losing streak are now either non-existent or to a lesser degree. Losing 5 games in a row is common. I mean, Mississippi State may end up doing that to end their season. Michigan State lost 5 in a row in the middle of their season, just like A&M, and they also have that much stronger non-conference strength of schedule. There's a text from David in the Pacific Northwest says, when has A&M gotten the benefit of the doubt from any committee? And he says 2006 ? I am personally not familiar with this situation, so I was wondering, David, if you could educate me on what happened in 2006.
I need to probably get Billy or OB on here to remember that. I believe I was covering that team. That was the 06 season. Was that the second year that Billy's squad went to the tournament? I'll go back and look at some Wikipedia here in a second just to kind of remind my thoughts. But look, let's go ahead and be real honest, Luke. This is a new story. I don't believe that there's a conspiracy group out there that is out there saying, oh, no, A&M is not going to happen. A&M is in this position because A&M's in this position this year. And you can honestly say the same thing about 21, although I thought they did enough. Sometimes I think talk show hosts, committees, certain people fall on their sword on one idea, and it's very hard to change. For instance, you got to be open to change. If a team is, they beat Kentucky, and that's the only reason you think they're in the tournament, then they have a losing streak. Are you changed? Does your mind change, or are you still sticking on to the Kentucky one? I look at the entire body of work when it comes to A&M, and the bad losses are part of the conversation. You lose those games, and that's why you are where you are right now. But if you start comparing resumes, which is what I'm hoping that they do, when you say, all right, here's Mississippi State, here's blah, 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 who are the teams that are really going to be up against A&M? Who are the 4 again that are?
St. John's, Indiana State, Seton Hall, TCU, Michigan State, Mississippi State, Colorado. There's a good amount of teams.
Yeah, you compare the resumes to those teams and how A&M has done against the Quad 1 games. And by the way, you can compare their Quad 1 record against anybody and Quad 2, right? You play that role. You look at their stinkers. Because it was you earlier, Luke, that brought up that Mississippi State had a terrible stinker, didn't they?
Yeah, they lost a Quad 4 game at home to Southern University.
Okay, so we are so invested in what A&M's going to do, and we only pick at our warts, and then we kind of fight on the reasons, and we're basing that on what other projections say. Do I think A&M should be in right now? I don't know. That's the honest truth. If you give me the last 4 in, I can make a debate for those 4. Last 6 in, I can make a debate why A&M should be over those teams. I do think if they take care of Ole Miss, they should be in. No guarantee that they'll be in, right? There's no guarantee. Even if you beat Kentucky, you'll be in. I think if you beat Kentucky, you're in. You agree with me there? If they win these next 2, they're in.
Yeah.
But because what we saw in 22, there's that hesitation. Well, I'm not going to allow 22 to be in the mix this year. And I'm not going to allow last year's 7th seed to be in the mix. I'm going to look at this based on this year and how they're playing right now. And the eyeball test tells me their arrow's pointing up, Mississippi State's pointing down, and others are pointing down.
Yeah, it may not even be just comparing to Mississippi State. I mean, I'm just looking at facts right here. St. John's has 1 win against the field. A&M has, I mean, you can't even count how many wins they have. Iowa State, Tennessee, Kentucky, those are just top 4 seeds. A&M has more wins over top 4 seeds than St. John's has wins over teams that are going to be in the tournament, period. I don't know why St. John's should be ahead of A&M, but that's just for the committee to decide. What we can do as fans and as people on the outside looking in is root for and against certain teams. So I want to give a little bit of a rooting guide for the next couple of days as conference tournaments begin. Obviously, the big one is Mississippi State taking on LSU. Mississippi State did just beat LSU by 20 late in February. It was 87-67. That was the last game that Mississippi State has won. They have not won a game since then. They're on a 4-game losing streak to end their season. So as A&M fans, you need LSU to knock off Mississippi State.
Yeah. Hey, I'm looking at 2006. So, yes, the 2006 season was actually the first year during the Billy Clyde NCAA tournament runs. That's the one where they lost to I was right. No, it was the second one where they lost to Memphis in the Sweet 16. I was there at the Alamo Dome. It was horrible. They had their chances. AC Law, Mr. Clutch, did miss an unfortunate layup in that game. That was just, I remember how bad I felt that game because I was like, we're moving on to the Elite Eight. That was a rough one. Were you born in 2006?
Yeah, I was 5.
Okay, just making sure. Let's try to get one more thing in before we hit a break.
Yep, the big teams you need to root against as well. Wake Forest playing either Notre Dame or Georgia Tech Wednesday 2:30 in the ACC tournament. Villanova playing DePaul Wednesday at 9 p.m. and New Mexico taking on Air Force in the Mountain West tournament Wednesday at 7 p.m. So root against Wake Forest, New Mexico, and Villanova in the next couple of days.
Yes, sir. You'll keep us updated, I'm sure, on Twitter.
Absolutely.
You've become my show prep.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Luke Nardi.
Luke Nardi. Good stuff there from Luke. When we come back, Joni Taylor. Are they in? They're in, right?
They have the best argument out of any team on this campus. They should be in.
But are they in? Like, I think I've seen in...
they should be one of the last 4
What's his
teams
name?
in.
Isn't that Cream? What's the...
Charlie Cream.
Charlie Cream. He has them in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has them as, I think, an 11 seed.
Yep.
In the play-in game. Am I right about that?
100. Yes, they should be in.
Yep. All right, we'll talk to Joni Taylor next here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Welcome back in. Logan Lee on the boards today. The Pride of Normandy named Coach of the Year in the WAC. Talking about Joseph Jones, who's filling in for Billy Clyde Gillespie there. The big fella did an outstanding job stepping up for BCG this season and quickly making a name for himself. So props to Tarleton State's head coach there, Joseph Jones, winning the Coach of the Year. And it looks like Dominique Kirk liked this. That's cool. And we were just talking about that basketball team that he was a part of, the 06 team. So congratulations there to Joseph Jones and Tarleton State out there. We should be joined by Joni Taylor here momentarily. Do want to talk about how their season has gone. The way they played South Carolina was, look, South Carolina's great, and I know they took them a game-winning 3 there to win in the semifinals before they took on LSU, and obviously we know exactly what happened there. But A&M's defense was just incredible in that game, and you got to give them a lot of props, and I think they're in, and we'll find out what the committee says on Monday. But right now, let's go to the hotline. We're joined by Joni Taylor here on TexAgs Radio. Joni, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. So this is kind of an interesting week, right? Like, what do you all do this week? Is there some rest / practice as you kind of wait your future?
We do. So we always like spring break comes at the perfect time. We've let our players get out of town for a couple of days if they choose. Some of them are here, but we're not practicing until Thursday night. We'll bring everybody back and get started. I think it's a great time for them to rest their bodies, rest their minds. Some of them go home to see family, and then we'll come back refreshed on Thursday night and start preparing.
How do you feel the season went overall when you look at the ups and downs, the injuries, and the way you all battled there in the SEC tournament? How do you kind of perceive your season?
Well, I have to really, and this week gives you a chance to have some perspective, right? We doubled our win total from last year. We have got a different mentality. We have a different type of just drive, resilience, focus for what it is we want this program to be. So in year 2, I'm super proud of the steps that we have taken. Are we where we want to be? Absolutely not, but we are definitely not where we were last year. We're moving in the right direction, which was our goal in year 2. With that being said, you kind of look back and you think about a few games you let slip away from you. You look at, playing 3 games without Janiah Barker, 2 without Malia Johnson, and then to lose your point guard for the last 6 games to finish out the season. You kind of wonder what that would have looked like if we would have had all of those pieces together for longer. We would be sitting in a different situation, I firmly believe, in terms of where we stand with the NCAA tournament. But with all that being said, I definitely think that, we're taking steps in the right direction. I'm proud of our team. I'm proud of our returners who embraced our new players. I'm proud of our talent that we brought in and how they, adapted to the culture and chemistry that we have here, and excited about the future.
How much do you pay attention to bracketology, and what are your people telling you about the chances of getting in this year?
We look at it. I mean, Charlie Cream's been spot on. He may not be exactly right about who you play, but in terms of our seeding or if you're getting in or not, he's been pretty spot on for the last couple of years with that. So it's something we definitely take a look at and take pretty seriously. I think we're in. I think that our job at the SEC tournament was to go in and beat Mississippi State, who was sitting right above us on that line. We were the last on that bubble, our last 4 out, and they were the last 4 in. And so us playing head-to-head gave us a chance to really prove who we were, what kind of team we are with a healthy roster. And then it was, to obviously beat South Carolina, but if we could not beat the number 1 team in the country, we needed to play them well and play them close, and we did that. And I think what's really important is that the committee now knows we have India Rogers back, because injuries play a factor in seeding. And now, and them knowing that she's back, and not only back, but healthy and play great in both of those games, I definitely think is beneficial for us.
Joni, interestingly, Mississippi State being the team that you were being compared to and obviously playing them, A&M, the men's side, I should say, kind of a similar situation. They kind of need to at least win one more game there in the SEC tournament. That's what the experts think. Just kind of similar parallels there for their tournament futures.
No, absolutely. It's something that when I looked at it, I said, wow, even closing out the regular season playing Mississippi State, and that's who we were playing in the tournament. I think our men obviously are super talented. Buzz does a great job. His staff is amazing, and they, in my opinion, are going to be ready to go. I don't know anybody better than Buzz at having his team ready and prepared and motivated, especially when they know what's at stake.
Going back to that South Carolina game, just how proud of the effort. And I know your team's always going to give great effort, but forcing those 24 turnovers, especially 10 to start off the game, and just the way that team continued to attack and had a chance all the way to the end.
Well, one of the things we talked about was if you let South Carolina pass and catch and do what they want to do, you're in for a long night. And that's what we did when they came to College Station in January. I thought we were passive. I didn't think we dictated on offense or defense. I think they dictated to us how the game was going to be played, and we never adjusted. We never fought back. And so, we were going to come out swinging, not literally, obviously, but we were going to come out swinging in terms of our aggressiveness and defensively, getting back to how we defend. And we're like, you've got to make it tough for them. Every shot has to be a tough shot. And I think we did that. We had 10 turnovers in the first quarter. They obviously finished the game at 24, which was a season high for them. And they just never got settled. And even with that being said, we lose by 11. But I think a lot of that had to do with our defense, and it definitely gave us not only confidence, but it showed not only ourselves, but the committee and everybody else, like with a healthy team, what we're capable of.
Joni, I don't want to ask you about what happened in another game, but just for your team in particular, do you all have conversations about when games get chippy, how we want to handle situations?
We do. We talk about it all the time, and every time something happens, we'll talk about this. Obviously, a few of us text about it as a staff and as players. Oh my God, coach, are you watching this? Like, oh my God, that would never happen. And it's obviously very easy to say what you would not do when you're not in that situation. And I, knock on wood, have never been in that situation in all of my 21 years of coaching. And I think a lot of that is because of the preventive conversations that we have. Anytime there is a scuffle or a fight or a technical foul that is worthy enough for us to talk about, we talk about it the next day in practice in the film room. We show it. We talk about who leaves the bench and what happens, and we talk about the consequences. And so, obviously you're talking about LSU, South Carolina. So Camilo Cardoso now cannot play in the next game for the NCAA tournament in the first round. So it's just, being able to think long-term consequence and not short-term satisfaction or get back or whatever the word is that the players have to use in terms of, well, I can't let her do that to me.
Joni, we've got about 30 seconds here. I just want to read this note here. This came from the game notes. Barker and Rogers healthy for the 23rd game this season. The Aggies are 17-6 in those games and 2-6 without. They are so crucial to the team's success, aren't they? Joni, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing where you guys go in the tournament. Thank you again. Joni Taylor there on the hotline. Appreciate her time here on the program. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with a little bit more here on TexAgs Radio. The 10 o'clock hour has got, what do we got? Tom Hart. We've got Pounding the Rock with Just Hop. That, and of course, your text messages and phone calls is TexAgs Radio. Here we go. Let's go straight to the hotline. Tom Hart, SEC Network, joining us here on TexAgs Radio. Tom, I think you know this about me. I'm an emotional dude, right? So I'm watching the LSU South Carolina game, and I'm like, good, pusher. Like that's how I feel. But you're not supposed to make decisions based on emotions, right? And a couple days later, you're like, yeah, maybe she shouldn't have done that because now a couple of you ladies are going to miss the NCAA tournament. Now that the dust has settled, just your thoughts on the LSU South Carolina squab that happened on Sunday.
So I'm going to take it a little bit of a different direction, moving off the court with it. What bothered me the most was the brother of one of the players jumping out of the stands and then over the scorer's table. By the way, there's two guys that jumped out of the stands, the videos that I saw, and then only one continued over the scorer's table. One of the cops got the second guy. And I heard some people just kind of shrug it off like, oh, it's his sister, but no. Like what if there were 10 siblings in the stands and they all jumped out to defend their sister? Or what if there were 4 or 8 or whatever? That's how these brawls happen all the time at high school games, where the stands just empty out on the court, which nobody wants and you cannot afford to have, not the least of which is player safety. So I heard, I didn't see the police report. I heard that guy got arrested. I hope he did. You've got to arrest everybody who does that in that scenario. You can't have everybody's older brother running onto the floor, because guess what? Then all of a sudden they start fighting with each other or they start fighting with the other players. I've got no problem generally, right? Nobody wants to see a brawl or a fight, whatever, but I've got no problem with combatants handling it themselves, right? You face up with each other, your teammate comes and has your back and breaks it up. I think that happens in the heat of the moment. It was just different and more noteworthy and grabbed more headlines because it happened in a women's game. I think that was the biggest thing. It's like, we see that in the men's game occasionally, but I can't remember the last time I saw somebody slung to the ground. And by the way, the women, everybody's bigger, faster, stronger. Like all athletes are bigger, faster, stronger now than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. That's 6'7" throwing somebody down. Angel Reese is not small either. Like if they square up, that's a legitimate face-to-face heavyweight fight.
Tom, it's interesting because they're both Hall of Fame coaches, right? And the different types of press conferences that they had afterward. And I find Mulkey, who I covered back in the day, I think in 2005, to be, if she's your coach, you definitely love her and you love that fire. But if she's not your coach, you're like, come on now. And that's the kind of personality she is.
She's defiant. They're both competitors. They're both competitive.
Did we lose Tom Hart? I think we might have lost Tom Hart. We'll see if we can get him back here in a moment. Tom Hart there from the SEC Network. Look, I appreciate the television part of it, right? Watching the press conference. I mean, of course, the fighting and the pressers afterwards. But I like what Joni said a moment ago when we had Joni Taylor on the program of like talking about these situations when they happen and before that they happen, to use that as a way of telling your team, this is how we're going to handle things. The reality is the same thing happens with parenting, right? Like when you are a parent, you hopefully you talk through some of these scenarios and you decide, you tell your kid, this is how you should handle it, right? That's the bottom line of it. And I do believe that in that scenario, when you are one of the best teams in the country the last couple of years, you've won a national championship, and there's bad blood between these two teams. That is a storyline. Hey, don't let them get you out of your game. If it goes this direction, you got to handle it like this. We're going to handle things classy, but we're not going to let people push us down. And look, I didn't watch that game. I saw the highlights on Twitter. It caught my attention. But at the end of the day, I think, especially if you're an A&M fan, right? You want your team to handle things with class. Let's go straight to the hotline because we got Tom Hart back here. Tom, you froze up whenever the last thing we heard, which I believe was what do you remember saying the last thing? I don't even remember at this point.
Well, I think you and I probably view it the same way. Like, Dawn Staley is as competitive as Kim Mulkey. I would never mess with North Philadelphia, but I thought her ability to be contrite in the postgame showed the type of leadership that I would want from my head coach. And I tend to think of things almost in an administrative manner. If I were the commissioner of the league, that's what I want to hear from a coach. Like, let's quell this situation. Let's admit to wrongdoing. Let's recognize that it's competitors out there, and that's great. Like, we want people to leave it all on the floor and be competitive. But we also need to recognize when a line was crossed. And Kim Mulkey is never going to admit defeat, nor is she ever going to back down. So, yeah, it kind of fits, I think, both coaches' personalities, like it or not.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio. Tom, I know you're a Chiefs guy, but you spend time in Atlanta. Did the Kirk Cousins news kind of catch you off guard?
Yeah, totally. It's an organization that since Matt Ryan, and even the last couple of years with Matt Ryan, just couldn't get the quarterback situation figured out, and they tried to have stopgaps and spend money elsewhere. But we know in the NFL, you better have a top 10 quarterback. You don't, there's only one Patrick Mahomes out there, right? There's only one Jalen Hurts. So, but you better get somebody who can move the ball. I think it was a great signing for him. I don't know about the money. I don't know how much of that was guaranteed, but I guess money doesn't really matter anymore.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio. Tom, we've done this show now for almost 3 years, and when it comes to Aggie basketball, I feel like there's so many different micro seasons in a season for this team in particular. This year, a couple of weeks ago, we almost wrote them off, and here they are with a fighting chance. What do you think about A&M recently?
Yeah, listen, I was just, before I got on with you guys this morning, with you, David, I went over their metrics once again, and I think, listen, they're a bubble team. There's no other way about it, and they have to win their first game of the tournament. Then they get a crack at Kentucky, and I think if they beat Kentucky, they're a shoo-in. And I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but just doing a comp to the other bubble teams right now, A&M has answered the question that the committee dogged them for each of the last two seasons. Underseeded last year, even with that great run late in the season. Didn't make it in the year before, even with that hurried finish to the season and the run in the conference tournament. And that is strength of schedule. Non-conference strength of schedule is top 25, top 20 overall strength of schedule. 2 quad 1A wins. Like, there's quad 1, 2, 3, 4, but really another thing the committee looks at is quad 1A. Like, what did you do against elite teams? Houston, they played shorthanded. That's a quad 1A game. They got one win against Tennessee. And the Iowa State win, I didn't give it much credence when it occurred. I didn't really give it much credit even into January. But all Iowa State did was keep winning. And so Aggies need to pull for Iowa State to win the Big 12 tournament, to make that win look even better. And I think they're in great position. I really do. I think as of today, this goes against what some of the bracketologists have out there, but if you really do a deep dive into the resumes, I think A&M is in as of today. Now, nothing's played in a vacuum, obviously, and there's still games to be played. And if you lose to Ole Miss, you throw that away and you put yourself in a real danger zone, if not out. But I think the quad 1 wins, 5 of them, the quad 1A results, 2 wins in that category, the strength of schedule overall relative to some of these other teams that are around them in the bubble. I think the resume is better than Virginia's. I think it's better than Colorado's. I think it compares favorably to St. John's, which is an interesting conversation. And obviously the elite numbers are better than Indiana State's, because Indiana State didn't have that same opportunity. So I feel like the committee could go either direction there. And then, of course, Mississippi State's kind of hanging by a thread, too. They're in right now. Lenardi has one of the last 4 byes, but a poor performance in Nashville could cost Mississippi State.
Talking to Tom Hart. Tom, you've done tons of A&M basketball games over the years. How many times did you circle Manny Obaseki on your game notes as you were preparing for a broadcast?
Well, listen, I thought he played really well in that game against Kentucky. I really did. I thought that he gave them a burst off the bench, a sense of urgency. I think that when he knows he's going to get minutes, and maybe this is, I'm just spitballing here, but maybe this is the difference for him. Minutes can be hard to come by in that backcourt, obviously. But when something happens early in the game, somebody is out, there's an injury, there's foul trouble, I think he gains confidence. And he gains confidence knowing, okay, I can afford to make a mistake here or there, but as long as I just go full throttle, I can stay on the court, and good things can happen. And he's done that. He's shown that ability. He has popped at times. It's just a matter of, can you put that together for 20 minutes of a 40-minute game? Or are you only going to be a 6-minute guy and flame out? I think that's a valuable piece that they can add, because right now there's really only 2 scorers on the floor at any one time for A&M.
Tom, I think you had the Tennessee-Kentucky game. Am I right?
The first one, not this weekend. No, I had Alabama-Arkansas.
Okay, Alabama.
The one at Rupp.
All right. Well, just your thoughts on the way Kentucky's surging right now.
Well, they went on this run probably a third of the way through conference play. It coincided when they got Big Z onto the floor, and everybody fell in love with Kentucky. And I understood the infatuation from the national media because they were scoring a lot of points. They are really fun to watch. But I thought that it was unearned at the time because their defense was just deplorable. I mean, it was awful, from baseline out of bounds plays to just basic pick and roll coverage. They couldn't execute anything in the half court defensively. They've gotten better. They've gotten a lot better. But I think another thing that John Calipari has done is he's allowed this team time to evolve. Justin Edwards is a guy who, before the season, David, he was cast as not only a likely lottery pick, a guaranteed lottery pick, and maybe as high as 3rd overall in the first college player taken. And he was a no-show for the first 3 months of the season. And then in the last 2 weeks, he comes out of his shell. He has a big game. And then Tennessee this weekend, he hits some big threes, and he's living up to that potential. I think a lot of coaches would have yo-yoed his playing time or would have frustrated the player because of their own frustration and wouldn't have gotten anything out of him. But Cal has a way of being loyal to and sticking with his guys even when they don't perform, seeing the best in them and thinking, okay, eventually this guy's going to come through. And I think that's the key for them because they've adjusted their style and they've been even more of the NBA style. Just put a rim protector on the floor at times, but really we're going to shoot a ton of threes. We're going to lean on Reed Sheppard, who's shooting 50% from 3 as a freshman, which is unheard of, and everything else he does on the court. And they're going to try to outscore you. And I think they're going to be a trendy pick for the tournament. I don't think that works for 6 wins in a row, but it can certainly work for 4 in a row to get you to the Final Four, and then everything after that's a toss-up.
Hey, Tom, this came across my timeline. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo now, he has his tweet out there. It says, Nick Saban tells the roundtable that an NFL coach has told him and players in the NIL era come less developed and with more entitlements than previously, when talking about part of the reason he was retiring. But they come less developed and more entitled. What do you think about that?
I don't think there's any doubt. There's a very fine line between player empowerment, which I think most people are for, and player entitlement. A good example is player empowerment. Hey, I've won a lot of games for you. I've sold a lot of jerseys and put people in the stands. I deserve a cut. Okay, yes, let's empower you to take advantage of that. Player entitlement is, give me $10,000 or I'm not visiting. What? You haven't played a down of college football and you demand $10,000 just to come on a visit? That's, I think, a fine line. And all of it, in my opinion, and there's some Freudian guesswork going on here, but what happens in some scenarios, and I'm convinced of this, is let's take a nice round number. Let's say a player is getting paid $400,000 and he's a second-string guy. Okay? That happens at the highest levels of play. And you start demanding things of him. he thinks he's better than he is. And one of the reasons he thinks he's better than he is, or he doesn't need to develop and he's already arrived, is because he's looking at his paycheck and he's going, hold on a second. I'm making $400,000 a year. I'm obviously good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be paying me $400,000. Well, no. The market value dictates we needed to get you on campus. We need to get you in uniform and on the field. But your play dictates that you still have a long way to go, and you need to continue your development and be coached. And that coaching might be on the field, it might be in the film room, it might be in the weight room. And I think some of these guys, it's just hard to convince them of that when you're telling them one thing, and then you're conflating that by handing them a check for more money than they've ever seen, and then in some scenarios is close to, what professionals are getting paid. So I don't doubt that at all. And it's not just a problem for the college coaches, but obviously now it's taking root at the next level. What they'll learn, though, is that there is no meritocracy in the NFL. You can either play or you can't play. And if you show up and that doesn't work out, there's no waiting around, right? You know this. I mean, you can only be on the practice squad for a couple of years. And if that doesn't pan out, well, then, I guess there's a new spring league that's just started. Maybe you can jump in with those guys because they're not going to wait for you.
Tom, one more that I really like. This one's from it's Ross Dellinger here. Greg Byrne, the Alabama AD, says, if it weren't for football, we would not have 21 sports at the University of Alabama. We do not want to see college sports lose women's sports and Olympic sports. And I think that is very loud and clear with many college sports fans out there. And that's what the fear is if football were to break away.
Yeah. I want to say there's really smart people in charge of college athletics that find a way to fund those sports, even if they're being played in different leagues. Like, let's say, for example, you had the AFC and the NFC of college football, where you could still have an SEC when it came to basketball, baseball, gymnastics, softball, all of those. And look at how many sports the Big Ten schools sponsor. I mean, I think Ohio State has 44, Stanford 40-something, if not 50. The money is there to fund them, but it all obviously comes from the football coffers. As long as football's still associated with your school in one form or fashion, you still have the money. It's just about you being creative enough to move it around. It wasn't that long ago where none of this stuff was revenue generating. But now there are certainly a lot of baseball programs that are. There are gymnastics programs that sell out, women's basketball programs. Generally lose money, but you could put it in a way, if you move things around, where you could pay for it. You just would have to make some changes. I think it's all doable. It's just going to be a new way of life in terms of how you structure your athletic department. And oh, by the way, the collective we, because we're all associated with the SEC in one form or fashion. I think fans are just as big stakeholders as anybody. We brought this on ourselves, right? You can't complain about Pac-12 being disbanded without recognizing the role that you played in that. You can't demand 58% of the future college football playoff revenue, which is more than the ACC would get, and a $9 million difference between the SEC and the ACC, and then be shocked when the ACC folds in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Every moth bats its wings and sends a boulder down a hill somewhere else, even if you didn't intend for it to happen.
That is Tom Hart here on the hotline. Tom, we appreciate you so much, my friend. Talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good, David. Thanks for having me.
Later, buddy. Tom Hart there, breaking it down. All right, let's do this. Let's hit a break. When we come back around the SEC, Callie Gardner will be here in studio. We'll get to that. And then what do we got? We got Pounding the Rock with Hop. He wasn't on the graphic. His feelings were hurt. Are there on the boards? We're going to make it up to him here on TexAgs Radio. So, Callie Gardner, I got to give your last name. Welcome back to TexAgs Radio, by the way. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. You did not know that you were going to be performing in front of a live studio audience because I got a couple friends here in studio watching the show. Does it change the vibe?
You know, it does. I'm a little more intimidated now than I have been
But
before,
you know what you do well? You like to you have fun with segments. You make fun of me sometimes. So, you know, if you have something to make fun of me to get started, it's all good.
I don't know what I've got today. I like your Batman bracelet. I've been noticing that.
That's a
daily. Are you a Batman guy?
Am I a Batman guy? I am the Batman.
You are.
Hello.
Okay, that's fair.
In fact, I've lost listeners because I wear a Batman bracelet. Yes. So just a little bit. This is a Batman one, too.
Okay.
This is from my son's, plural twins, first birthday party ever.
Oh, wow.
Yep. I had a Superman and a Batman one that I wore. I haven't taken it off since they were born, or the first birthday. So they're about to be 16. So this will be 15 years. This one is Olin dressed up as me for Halloween one year.
I saw that.
Yes, and he looked very similar, by the way. Much stronger than I was at that day. And he wore this and he handed it to me. So that's why I wear the two Batman bracelets.
I like it.
I lost the Superman one during Iron Man in Galveston in the water. So if anybody finds it, I would appreciate getting that back.
Was that just a flex that you did the Iron Man in Galveston?
Well, it was the half Iron Man, so it's not really a full flex.
Okay.
You know, it's only 70.3 miles. It's just not a big deal. Whatever. Anyway, what do we got around the SEC?
We've got a lot. We had the SEC Basketball Awards announced this week. Dalton Knecht is Player of the Year. He averaged 27 minutes a game this year and 20 points a game, shooting 81.1% from the free throw line, which is impressive. Lamont Paris of South Carolina was named SEC Coach of the Year.
Deserved it.
Deserved it for sure, from being picked to finish last in the SEC. He finished fifth in his second season at South Carolina, and Dawn Staley of South Carolina also won SEC Coach of the Year. She's 32-0 overall and 16-0 in the SEC. They were regular season and tournament champions, and they will be picked to be the overall seed in the NCAA tournament. This is only the third time in SEC history that both coaches of the year came from the same school. Vanderbilt's coach Jerry Stackhouse is on the hot seat after a poor performance in the SEC this year, winning only 4 games and 9 overall. Vanderbilt is ranked.
Who did they beat?
They beat us.
And is that the reason right now? Might be the reason that A&M may or may not make the tournament.
You know, I think that is playing a big factor in that. That was a close game that ended in heartbreak for the Aggies, as most of them do. Jerry Stackhouse signed a 6-year contract with Vanderbilt in 2019, which means he has 1 more year of his contract before they have the choice to make the decision to renew him or search for a new head coach. SEC basketball tournament starts this week, and I was kind of thinking, I don't know who has the most to prove in this tournament. Tomorrow.
Yep.
I personally would say Auburn. I mean, obviously they're a tournament team. You know, they're 24-7, 13-5 in the SEC, and we talk about the eye test a lot, and Auburn definitely passes it, as well as being statistically impressive. At the same time, their road losses say a lot about that team when they're away from home. Their best win this season is over Ole Miss on the road. We all know what A&M just did to them in Oxford. So the rest of the season is going to be spent playing good teams on the road. So does Auburn, have the capability to perform well under those circumstances. Do you know their quad 1 record?
I'm going to assume it's not good.
It's 1-7.
Is that good?
I mean, it's not good to me.
Do you know what A&M's quad 1 record is?
It's more than that.
I think it's
5-6.
Yeah, 5-6. And the only reason it's flipped is because Florida lost.
Right.
That was considered a quad 1 win.
Yes, so we did have 6 for a while, which is 5 more than Auburn.
And if Florida wins a couple in the SEC tournament, it'll be back to being a quad 1 win.
Yeah, so, I mean, and they've got, to their credit, they're 23-0 in quad 2, 3, and 4. So they've got some good wins. They just can't seem to get it done in the quad 1 department. SEC softball, only 2 SEC teams went 3-0 in conference play this weekend. That would be our Texas A&M Aggies and LSU. A&M swept South Carolina. LSU swept Kentucky on the road. I know I mentioned that earlier. LSU is the only SEC team that is undefeated this season, and they have a tough matchup against the Texas Longhorns today at 11 a.m. That will test their perfect season for sure. In baseball, University of Florida hosts a midweek rivalry matchup against Florida State, which is one of the 2 undefeated teams in NCAA D1 baseball. And Florida's a good team, but they're kind of struggling on the mound right now. They rank last in SEC starting pitching ERA. So
I hope they struggle on the mound this upcoming weekend.
I think so. I think against our lineup, it's pretty easy for a pitcher to struggle.
And by the way, if A&M's pitching, it doesn't have to be as great. Outside of Sunday's little 2-inning, that was an issue. But if they can just give you a little bit of what we've been seeing, like Texas level good, I think the way they played against Texas, I should say, I think they'll be all right this weekend.
I think so too. And not too long ago this morning, Ryan Prager was named the perfect game pitcher of the week. So with him on the mound on Friday, I'm pretty confident. I've got a busy weekend of family events, but I definitely plan on sneaking the phone out and tuning into those baseball games because that'll be a good series down there in Gainesville.
And also Selection Sunday.
I know. I mean, I'm going to be on the road for 4 hours on Sunday, so that'll be just me and my radio, whether it's baseball or basketball. So.
Any other good things in the SEC?
We've got A&M and our basketball players being named with our SEC awards. We've got Wade Taylor and Anderson Garcia. I would also agree with OB that Anderson Garcia had a season that may have proved to be more than just on all defensive team. I think he had a really good season, kind of a breakout season, if you want to put it that way. So that's about all I've got for you today.
Callie, great stuff as always. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
By the way, is A&M going to make the tournament? Honestly, your gut.
My gut says yes, but I may have placed a few bets with some friends.
Friendly bets.
Family-friendly bets.
Okay.
No, nothing crazy.
Do they have to beat Ole Miss, in your opinion, to get in, or are they already in? Or do they have to beat Ole Miss and Kentucky?
This morning I said Ole Miss and Kentucky.
But now?
Now I might say just Ole Miss. Okay. I think, I agree.
You've been listening to the show, haven't you?
Yeah, I also just think it depends on what happens. I think if Ole Miss if Mississippi State loses, I think that kind of skyrockets us over them for sure. I think we should already be over them.
I 100% agree.
But that's just I think we beat Ole Miss. I think we're in.
Great
I think
job.
we should be.
Good job, Callie. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, studio audience, you do it again or no?
I would do it again. I loved it.
Absolutely. There were no heckling or anything going on.
No.
All right, we need caller number 1 right now. We're going to give you a free car wash from Aggie Land Express Car Wash in South College Station off of William D. Fitch in Greens Prairie. They are Aggie owned and operated with the friendliest staff and a personal touch. They offer a monthly membership. But we'll give the first caller right now a free car wash from Aggie Land Express in South College Station, 979-693-1150. When it's just you, are we pounding the rock? I guess that probably makes more sense, Hop, because you're going to pound the rock until you get to the hole, right?
Pound the rock with the unknown guest.
With the unknown guest. We got David Sandhop here to break down a little basketball. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Watching a lot of basketball.
Yeah, let's talk about this late surge, all right? There's different ways you can look at it. There's the Manny factor. There's, Wade is starting to feel better, and each game a little bit steps in that direction. I think the defense has certainly picked up again here over the last 3 games. There's getting to the line and making those, the second chance points. What has caught your attention the most recently?
Well, the obvious, Manny, but I think one thing that's not being discussed in all the things that you've mentioned is that Solomon Washington Solomon has done his blocking shots, doing his crazy rebounds, but he's actually taking the ball to the hole.
Yep.
And he's scoring, and he's getting fouled and getting 3-point plays. So you add him into all the other things that you mentioned, all of a sudden it's all working. And when something goes right over here, it helps over here. So when Solo and Manny are doing something good, that's going to give Wade more opportunities because now the defense has to shift over and account for everybody, not just 1 or 2 players on the floor.
So I'm going to have you take off your Aggie goggles for a moment, okay?
Okay.
Also, I'm not going to allow you to use bracketology information to kind of cloud your judgment. If you just looked at the resume today, is A&M a tournament team today?
No.
Okay.
Not today. I think that a win over Ole Miss certainly gets them in the discussion to where then we can start talking bracketology. And I'm sure we'll get into some scenarios a little bit later. I think if they then beat Kentucky, I would say given their strength, their non-conference strength of schedule, I think that gets them safely in the tournament.
Is there a scenario where they lose to Ole Miss that they still get in if other teams also lose that are kind of where you in that same little discussion?
It has to be almost everything going perfectly. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say it's 0, but I wouldn't say much more than 5 or 10% chance of that happening.
When A&M was losing games, and this is why we're having this discussion, they had that 5-game losing streak. Sure, they'd win some rebounding battles, but they weren't getting the second chance points that we're used to seeing, or they were missing a lot of those. Their shooting percentages were really off. Against Ole Miss, they had a lot of second chance points again, getting back to what they do, along with the good shooting from the 3-point line.
Number one, let's call a spade here. Ole Miss was horrible in the paint. They were very weak. I mean, I don't know what was the final, like 41-15. I'd never seen that type of disparity. And they were easy offensive rebounds and easy putbacks. They weren't even contesting the putbacks. So I think that had a lot to do with it. But again, I think that when all the pieces of the puzzle are working, even the things you're good at get better because it's all easier. And so that's kind of the way I kind of look at it.
When things were going south, not only was A&M not shooting well from the 3, and they were taking a lot, the other teams were hitting threes. Ole Miss wasn't hitting threes, and they usually do. I mean, they hit 28%, I think it was, which is not a terrible number. It's basically what A&M was shooting at the best part of the season. But that was a big part of the success as well.
Yeah, and I think you could certainly see with A&M against Ole Miss, they extended. Normally the strategy has been, hey, we're going to protect the middle, and if you can beat us outside in the corners, that's fine. Here, I think they realized, number one, we can't let that happen. That's their strength.
Right.
And Ole Miss really didn't have a really good ball handling guard who could create in the middle. And that's where I think where Ole Miss has kind of stumbled this year, is that they are relying on these 4 guys on the outside, including a couple forwards, which is why when they miss a shot, they don't get the rebound because they're all outside waiting to take the 3-point shot. So I think that allowed A&M then to extend without worrying about getting beat in the paint much.
I've said this a few times. The games that worry me are the games against a team like Ole Miss that you just destroyed and you get a different team because Chris Beard is a good coach. But does it really come down to the A&M team that shows up, not necessarily the Ole Miss team that shows up?
I'm not gonna go there because I think clearly that Chris Beard is going to come up with a different formula. And I think that formula is, if you looked at when A&M got the big lead, they were kind of playing back, saying, if A&M can hit the outside shot, and they did. But then, there was a brief period in the middle of the game where they really put pressure, extended, and that kind of bothered the Aggies.
Sure did.
And, that lead came down. A&M's never in danger, but it came down to where it was a competitive margin before, things went south for Ole Miss. So I would expect you're going to see a lot more perimeter pressure. You can see some more half-court traps, things like that, kind of speed up A&M and try to get them right a little bit on the outside. If I were Chris Beard, that's what I would do. So I think the key is what is Buzz Williams and the staff, what's their response? Because they're going to have to come back with a different strategy as well.
So Manny Obaseki, who's been playing out of this world these last 3-4 games, especially the last 2, he's hitting a lot of threes. That's not his game. How sustainable is this offensive Manny, in your opinion?
Well, there's no question he went off with a few threes, but still, his turnaround in the last 3 or 4 games has been his ability to take his defender one-on-one because they're putting Manny now in the game with Wade and with Boots, which they didn't prior, and that's given him more leeway to work his man. And Manny is so big and physical for a guard. He backs those guys down and he gets to the rim. And so I think that's the key. If Manny can continue to be productive on those dribble drives and not get caught up, he occasionally can do a little too much. But if he can, when he kind of gets trapped there, go ahead and kick it out and restart it, I think that's a good formula for A&M.
Amazingly, when he does attack the rim the way he does, or he's aggressive like you start getting the Wade Taylor that we remember, or at least this past game. Like each game I feel a little bit closer to the Wade we know. I'll take 19 from him and 19 from Boots any game.
Well, and I've said this, on our message boards quite a bit, is that shooting is so dependent on the quality of the shot. And if you look at Wade, especially this last game, many times the ball was passed to him and he shot it as he was going toward the basket and open. Whereas, there were times this season the team was struggling to score. You get down in the shot clock and he would jack up a three with somebody with a hand in his face. And it's a fact that when you're open, you're going to hit more shots than when you're guarded. And so I think that has a lot to do with it.
If Wade, Boots, and a third person, maybe it's Manny, how it's been, maybe Henry, who's back in the act, whoever, give you 50, those 3, do they win?
Yeah. I think if any 3 players give them 50, they're going to win because, like I said, I think now, if you look, at least 2 of the last 3 games, they had 4 players in double digits. And at least 3. So, yeah, I think that because we've talked about Solo's can give you 8 to 10 points now. Jace will give you a couple. He's really that jump stop move of his. He doesn't do it often, but he gets to the hole every now and again. So all these players are doing a little bit more than they did before, and that just helps the entire team as a whole.
And getting Henry back. Look, I don't know what kind of role he's going to play because he has missed time, but he played a little bit. That at least gives you depth and a guy you depend on. Yeah, the depth is a key because it was a couple games ago that you're wondering what were they going to do when they had Solo got in foul trouble
and he got hurt and got hurt, and Andy was racking up the fouls. You're like going, is Jace going to have to play the post?
Yep.
So if for anything else, you've got an extra big that you can count on, and he's a senior leader. He's a high character guy. He's going to help that bench when he's not playing. Jace needs to find a way to be part of the offense again. He had a little stretch where I'm like, I think he's figured it out. What are you seeing from Jace Carter's game? Well, number one, you can't discount the fact that he's really become a serious rebounder for this team. Yeah, and he's a pretty good defender. If he gives you 1 or 2 threes, that's great. He's got to be open to take that shot. The Jace taking a shot with deep is not the best trigger for A&M. But like I said, I think, as I said before, if he can just get a couple, 2 or 3 opportunities on the baseline, and where he does his little jump stop and he can get to the hole, he is finishing. And it's not, I don't expect Jace Carter to get many 12, 15-point games in this tournament, but if you can get 6 to 8 points with 5 to 6 rebounds, I think you're happy with that.
Andy getting all defense for the SEC. I wish he would have gotten a little bit more accolades, but well-deserved. He has been phenomenal all year long. Probably their most consistent player this year.
No question. And, if Buzz Williams were to draw up the ideal player that he would want on his team, it would be Anderson Garcia. He knows his role. He's very good at his role, and complete team player. And you know what? And we don't talk about it much because he doesn't do it much. But when they leave him open from the 3,
he'll hit it.
He'll hit it. I mean, I think technically, if you look at the stats, he may be the leading 3-point shooter. Now he only shoots a handful, but if they're going to leave him open, I'm fine with him taking that shot occasionally.
Hop, there was so much of, pointing fingers at Buzz during the 5-game losing streak, and I understand it. But a place that I think he deserves some credit is development of players, because Andy's not the same player that walked on campus a couple years back. Boots is not the same player. He is developed. Wade Taylor, obviously, we thought he could maybe, but he took huge steps. The development of these players under Buzz Williams, just talk about that a bit.
Well, you talk about Anderson Garcia. He was a bench player from Mississippi State. And, when, the announcement came out that he had transferred to A&M, we're going, why? What? He's an undersized big that has no stats. Well, we now know why, because they saw in him the makeup, the character and the profile and the physical profiles. That is a guy that we can develop into exactly what we need. A guy that's just going to 24/7 go after the ball, make things happen, and support the team. And you see that all the way through. And I know a lot of people sometimes go, Buzz and the whole we're all one player stuff. But you know what? That's how you get these guys to buy in. And, 2 weeks ago, I'm not so sure this team goes on a 3-0 run and has a chance to make it if you don't have all the players all in what's going on, and they love their coach, and the coach loves them.
And at the end of the day, he's become a guy, as you said earlier, like you kind of but you feel comfortable offensively with him. When the season started, I was like, I don't really want this dude taking shots. And now it's shots, putbacks. You just feel comfortable when the ball's in his hands. And his passing, too, by the way.
Well, I was about to say, there's a few times they'll get a high post entry pass, and all of a sudden he's hitting a cutter on the backside for an easy layup. And you're like, man, how did he see that? Yeah, he does everything well that you need from a player that understands his role. Anderson Garcia is never going to be that 20-point guy, but he's going to be the guy that's going to get you 13 or 14 rebounds. He's going to be the guy that gets you a couple cutters for an easy basket, and he'll hit you occasional three-pointer, and he's going to have a couple putbacks. That's exactly what this team needs.
Yeah. I started the show today with, you don't know what a committee's thinking. Each year's got a different vibe, different feel. So we can't use 2022 logic for 2024. That being said, if A&M takes care of business against Ole Miss, I know you said they have to still be, to really be in the conference, they got to be Kentucky as well. But do you think the committee will look at the non-conference, the Iowa State wins, and the close battles with U of H, and maybe, hey, we owe you from a couple years back. You're right there. Maybe that pushes them over the top.
Well, and a lot of people have made that comment. Well, they didn't do us any favors in 2022, 2023. But the NCAA was very clear a couple years ago, saying schedule better in the non-conference. And I think that's what did A&M in the last 2 years. They said, hey, they didn't schedule tough. So, and it worked because Buzz Williams went out and scheduled the non-conference games the NCAA wanted to see. So I'm not going to ever say that the NCAA is going to do A&M any favors, but I do think they're going to get a fair shake. And it's going to come down to, obviously, what A&M does this weekend, and it's going to come down to teams like St. John's, Virginia, Colorado, New Mexico. So far, Of course, in the earlier week, all the small conference tournaments have gone on. There have been no major upsets.
Yeah.
The WCC last night, both St. Mary's and Gonzaga won. They were both getting in anyway. So
had they lost,
had they lost, it would have certainly set up a very interesting final game today. But they haven't, and there hasn't been. I know Indiana State, quote, upset Drake. They were both going to be bubble teams.
Sure.
So far, it's really worked out in any of the major Power 5 teams that are on this bubble. It's really worked out so far.
Hop, let's close with this. Is it fair to say that a lot of times media is a little lazy? Because at one point I understood why Mississippi State had bragging rights over A&M if it came down to those teams. And obviously it never comes down to just 2 SEC teams. But since then, Mississippi State's arrow's pointing down, A&M's is pointing up. A&M's got a better conference record. A&M beat them. Like, I just feel like people get stuck on this is my take and I'm not going to change while there's new evidence.
Well, I think that will change if LSU beats Mississippi State on Thursday and A&M beats Ole Miss. I think that flips. I think what was in Mississippi State's favor and why they're sticking around is through this losing streak of theirs, most of their games were losses against highly ranked teams.
Yep.
And if you look at the conference schedule and how they do it, they had a pretty tough conference schedule. They were doubling up on South Carolina and other ranked teams. A&M was doubling up on LSU, Arkansas, and Missouri.
Yep.
So there was a difference in strength of schedule in conference that has to be accounted for.
Hop, I appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back with one final segment on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, it's time to end the day with Double Days. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza there from Double Days. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledays.com and your favorites are on their way. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Luke Evangelist. Luke, A&M baseball 16-0. Sam Houston coming up tonight. Who's on the mound for the Ags?
I believe it will be Isaac Morton. Not sure if it's confirmed. I believe it says probable starter on there, but young player, certainly a lot of opportunities coming up with SEC play coming up, and you want to get as many of those guys involved. This is not just any midweek game. This might be the toughest midweek game that A&M has. Sam Houston State did just sweep Texas State, and Texas State beat Texas, so a lot of great competition for Texas A&M. As you can see there, they've got Air Force, who is always pretty tough, Houston, and then the trip to Texas State. But Sam Houston, Bronny was saying this is a team that could make the tournament, probably will make the tournament. So a lot of great opportunities for A&M baseball. That's at 6 o'clock, so come out and see that. A&M is one of the last two undefeated teams, along with Florida State in Division I baseball, and Florida State will play Florida tonight, as A&M will also play Florida this weekend. So pretty tough schedule for the Florida Gators.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And look, here's the deal, guys. Like A&M really only played Luke, 2 bad innings this season. It feels like, and they happen to be in that Rhode Island closer, the third game of that series. So hopefully they take care of business tonight. Thank you, Luke. Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, David.
That's going to do it for TexAgs Radio here on a Tuesday. My thanks to Tom Hart, to HoF, who was here in this hour. We had Tori Vidales from the SEC Network and ESPN. We had Justin Lanham on the program. Joni Taylor, Aggie women's basketball, waiting their destination there on Monday. Charean Williams on the program. And, of course, Olin Buchanan. Tomorrow on the show, it's a Wednesday. What do we got? Tom Schuberth? John Harris. You know John Harris.
Yeah.
We'll get John on the show. We've got Coach Henry, Trisha Ford, and Jason Howell going to be in here for Recruiting Country, so that'll be good. And Kendall Rogers to do a little bit more baseball talk here on the show. That's going to do it. We're going to see you all mañana. Thanks for watching.